This week, some people age really well and some don't. Same is true for cigars. The best Connecticut cigars, price increases, top cigars of 2021, and all the many, many lists that are trying to rank them. Buying humidors and other cigar gifts. And was it a Peloton or a cigar? All that and more on this episode of the Stogie Geeks Show. This is Security Weekly. For security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where cigars burn slow, ashes fall fast, and cocktails flow steady. It's the Stogie Geeks Show. Welcome, everyone, to the Stogie Geeks Show. Joe and I are already silly.
Oh, yeah.
Joe Hozempa, a.k.a. Joe Hollywood, is here with me in studio.
I'm fired up. So we also have remote Drew, who is remote over in Texas. Look at you. You got some Stogie Geek swag going on in the background.
Got my banner.
Where are you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm all set up for the Stogie Geek mobile lounge.
Confidence. Confidence isn't walking into a room with your nose in the air, thinking you're better than anyone else. It's walking into a room and not having to compare yourself to anyone in the first place.
Cigars, perfected for more than 150 years. Yours to enjoy now.
Havana Cigar Club, located in Warwick, Rhode Island, is a great place to enjoy a drink and a cigar. Stogie Geeks listeners can find a $5 off coupon on our website by clicking the HCC logo. Welcome, everyone, to the Stogie Geeks Show. I'm your host, Paul Asadorian. Excited to be here today. Really excited about this cigar that I'm smoking as well, which we'll get into. To my left, Mr. Joe Hozempa is here with us. Joe, welcome.
Hey. Welcome, everyone.
Are you excited about the cigar I gave you?
It's tasty.
It's different.
I always settle, whenever I have an Opus, settle in, take a deep breath, and enjoy the moment, for sure.
You know, yeah, I mean, the scary part is with once a month, when we do the show, I tend to, dip into the collection and pull out something that I think is interesting. I've been sitting around for a while and kind of rare. So Dr. Doug White is in the house joining us for this episode. Doug, welcome.
Hi, it's good to be here.
Nice to have you. Yeah. We hit you up with a Lancero because you tend to gravitate towards the larger ring gauge. So we gave Doug like a dainty little,
like a number
Lancero.
2 pencil here. So that's like the opposite of. Usually I have those 60 ring cigars. I did give up the 80 ring cigars, but these, I mean, I don't feel worthy to light this, but it's.
Well, I delved into, so we'll get right into it, right? I delved into the Cigar Family Charitable Foundation box that usually comes. It's changed over the years, and every year is slightly different. This happens to be the 2015 Cigar Family CFCF, or some call it the Fun Box, the Fuente Fun Box, because you get 22 cigars. Some you get 2, some you get just 1. They're typically packaged in individual coffins for each cigar, and the packaging has varied over the years. This box was very elaborate. You can look it up online and find pictures of it. I'm sure I should have snapped a couple of pictures, but it's probably 60-ish% depleted at this point inside the box. Been smoking them. Not interesting when we talk about aging. Not all the cigars in there were of the Opus X or Forbidden X, Opus X Forbidden X kind of series cigars, which tend to age very well. Some of them were Angel Share, I want to say, in that box as well. So I've smoked those because there's no point in aging them. Again, we'll talk more about that as the show goes on. This is roughly the 6-year time frame that these have been aging in my humidor, although probably like it came out in 2015 and I acquired it in late 2015 or early 2016, I believe. So it's been aging in my humidor for about five years or so, which I think is a magic time to smoke Opus X. Anytime between that 3 and 6 year.
With Opus, the 5 is the sweet spot.
5
because you and I probably 6 months ago, with our day jobs, you had shared it was like 6 or 7 year old ones, and we both came up with the same conclusion that they kind of aged out.
Yeah,
which is one of the topics we're going to talk about today too. So
I've got the Forbidden X 13 Bellicoso. So it's interesting. These are branded as Fuente Opus X, which was the original one released in like 1998 or just thereabouts. It's an interesting kind of history of the Opus X brand. Most people refer to it as Opus or Opus X. The proper name is Fuente Opus X. The Forbidden X is like an offshoot from Opus, and they're very cagey about like what's actually in the blend. We should have Jose Blanco on the show and kind of prep him with some of those questions and talk about it like as much as he can. Is like what I don't know. We'll get the exact differences between the blends, right? But there might be some explanation Fuente can offer us about, because the Forbidden X, as you know, those of us that watch the show and are into the Fuente stuff, right? The band is different from traditional Opus X. It's got that black kind of coloring in there. So again, I don't remember, Joe, and I don't know if you do or our listeners remember and want to put in Discord or send us an email, like what the actual, if it ever has been documented, like what the differences are between the Forbidden X and regular Opus X. No. It's a much darker wrapper, so I'm assuming the wrapper is
it's supposed to be
different.
It's supposed to be like an edgier smoke, the Forbidden X, and it doesn't have that behind the label where it's that orange, which is supposed to represent the sunset and all of that stuff.
It's the black.
It's a black,
But the wrapper colors vary on the Forbidden X because the Forbidden X carries, the cigar in the bottle carries that similar kind of band, but it's not a darker wrapper on that cigar. So
if you want to do a little bit of Stogie Geeks web surfing, go to stogiegeeks.com, type in Richard Carton Hacker, right? So Richard Carlton, Carleton Hacker, and we actually interviewed him. He wrote a book called The Ultimate Cigar Book, and in there is a chapter, and he actually talked about plowing the fields on Stogie Geeks, and how the fields were flooded, and he was with Carlos Fuentes Sr., and he actually wrote about like that. He didn't get into the blends, but like what
some
happened,
of the history.
What happened with the elements, and I won't spoil it. We can save it for maybe next month, because then if I tell you, then you won't go there and look at it. So
I gotta check that book out too.
I have it. You don't have it?
I think you might have given me a copy.
If not, I'll bring mine in.
What did I give you, Joe, for a cigar? I don't. It's a King something.
The King Power 2015.
The Kung Pao. Let me see that. It's not Kung Pao. No, it's King
Power.
King Power.
Am I not talking right today? I feel like I'm not talking right today.
Can you get warmed up? Get a little more whiskey in you.
Can you just put my volume up?
We got you got a knob for that. We got the Balvenie double with 12 year.
I feel like I'm like stuttering. Like anyway, I have the Fuente Opus X King Power 2015. It's
like a mini. Hold that up. It's like a short Bellicoso.
Yeah, short Bellicoso. It's a little fat.
It's actually a similar size to mine. Now Joe and I are going to compare sizes. Put yours next to mine, Joe. Let's do a comparison. I mean, they're pretty. Mine's a little bigger. Just got to say, but very similar bigger. Shape.
But mine seems to be a little fatter. So
don't look each other in the eye while you're doing that. It'll be okay.
And Doug, we gave you a totally different size.
He's got the skinny
I'm all length, no girth.
Yeah.
So
you got the Lancero.
Yeah, it's a cool cigar. I mean, I got a box of Opus X's once we won a lawsuit. And the attorney who was doing the lawsuit bought like 2 boxes of Opus X and gave me one of them. And the whole time I felt so guilty because it was like, I don't think I'm appreciating these at the level I need to.
Yeah.
And they're such nice cigars, and they burn really well. All of my sophisticated, it burns well, you know.
Right.
But they were really nice, but I felt bad.
It truly is an experience when you have an Opus X, whichever one. Like you know, it's not I'm on my way to work. Let me smoke it. It's
I agree.
Sit down, do a podcast if you have one. If not, sit down in a nice, comfortable chair and totally enjoy the experience.
It seems like you should be sitting in a like semi-darkened room by yourself, listening to.
You should definitely, focus on it.
Yeah.
I think, is kind of Joe's point, right?
It's definitely different than what you smoke every day.
Absolutely.
Unless you have a really lot of money.
Well, I mean, they're not that. They usually come out this time of year. I'm not sure if they have locally. I was actually asking Joe that earlier, if he had seen it in some of our local shops. I know a couple of weeks ago I had not. So we'll see. Usually they are released around it used to be like around Father's Day and around Christmas time, but I think especially in the past couple of years that goes out the window. It's like whenever they can get them here, with the pandemic and such. So it's good. There's a lot of different kinds. I pulled from this box because I thought it was some unique and really interesting sizes. Of Opus X in different ones.
Are these all 2015?
These are all the 2015. These all came from that same Cigar Family Charitable Foundation box.
Yeah. They have a couple different sets. They have that set, and then there's one that they do with Diamond Crown as well. It's dual box.
Yes,
for the charitable.
And
foundation.
one is not great in there, and one's awesome. And I forget which.
Well, first of all, side by each, as we say here in the Northeast, right? You have a Diamond Crown, and then you have an Opus X. Like you kind of need,
They're two totally different.
They're totally different sticks.
Totally different, for sure.
But they are good.
Have you smoked anything interesting lately? I didn't put it together a list of what I've been smoking. I got some other topics that I want to delve into, but
yes.
I'm still kind of digging much of what I talked about last week. I think you and I were talking about HVC and how that's one of the few newer brands. I don't think newer blends, but certainly newer brands that has truly impressed both you and I think many in the cigar world.
Yeah.
Cigar smokers, I should say, right?
Yeah.
I think if you make a competing cigar, you're like, crap. I mean, there's a lot of appreciation and camaraderie, among cigar makers, but I think they knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, sidebar, I mean, mid-January, around the 20s is when Cigar Aficionado posts the stick of the year. When they do the top 25, guarantee you HVC's in top 10. There's no question.
I saw an HVC in one of these lists, which is the other reason I started mentioning it. It wasn't Cigar Journal. They all do. I mean, we used to do them here on Stogie Geeks too, right?
Doug has experience with HVCs. Those are those Black Fridays.
Yeah,
from about a year
those
ago.
are really, those are really nice.
Yeah, you remember when I bought a box and you and I blew through them in
and
like
I
2
smoked
weeks?
all of them. Yeah, I was just like, hey Joe, I'm gonna take like 12 of these.
Yeah, that's the brand of what we're talking about.
They just come out like once a year, so they're like those collectible kind of.
That's why I didn't see this one. So I like the HVC Series A. I buy those by the box in, I forget which size that I buy them in. I think that blend comes in a few different sizes. They did an exclusive for Famous Smoke. And I'm not sure if it's just a size difference or if it's a blend difference. The regular band looks exactly the same from the Series A. They just added a band on the foot for Famous Smoke. But when I saw that reminded me that is definitely one of the cigars I've been digging lately. Is that specifically the Series A, also the 500th, right? Is there other one?
Yeah.
That we talked about last time.
Yep, that's good too. They have a 20th anniversary. It's okay. I think it needs a little bit of aging. The Black Fridays came out. I always save one, so I had my 2020.
Yeah, I haven't smoked that one yet.
Well, I had my 2020 this week.
Yeah.
And made my notes, and then the 2021's, it's already out. Locally, a lot of shops didn't hop on it, and I wonder why. And it's probably a buy-in thing, or it could be a supply chain. I didn't get to those points in my conversations with them.
Yeah, I think that's the thing we've talked about, right? Some cigars do well in some shops and not others.
Right.
I know at Mr. J's Havana Smoke Shop, HVC does really well, and that's because Stogie Santa works there, and he's always like, hey, you got to try this one, right? Like,
I was going to say, I bet a lot of that's about anything new people don't buy, right? I mean, so unless you've got somebody on site that's pushing it,
right,
and saying, here, give this a try, because I see tons of people come into Humidors and they're saying, give me a recommendation. And if what do you call the person who runs? It's not a sommelier.
I mean, there is a start.
Depends what shop it is.
Yeah, I have heard where the term cigar sommelier kind of.
Yeah. Okay,
they have the same for wine. I believe the same title for whiskey.
Yeah,
I know some people that
even tequila,
in security actually were like getting their certification to become a whiskey sommelier.
Well,
I did hear that. Yeah,
but I think if that person comes in and pushes something, especially if it's something good and they're not just pushing something to get rid of it, or it's something new that you just wouldn't normally try, you get a lot more sales for stuff like that than if it's just sitting on a shelf somewhere and people go, well, I could buy what I always buy, or I could do, here's this other new thing I don't know anything about.
You need the cigar curmudgeon.
Yeah,
that works at the shop.
Yep.
That has and this is Stogie Santa, right? Not to say that he's a jerk, like he's an awesome guy, he's a good friend of mine, love him to death, and he's super nice, but he is curmudgeon-y in the sense that he's very particular about cigars, but also you couple that with the number of cigars that like someone in his position in that shop has to try on a regular basis.
Right.
So like if you work at a cigar shop, and I think Joe and I have certainly witnessed this, right? The folks working at the shop, if you spend any amount of time in a cigar shop and you've been there when a representative comes in from a cigar company and goes, oh, like, I want you to try these cigars because I want you to carry them in your store. And like, I know Stogie saying, like, I can tell by looking at his face whether he likes it or not, and whether or not he likes it. I know him so well, right? And you can probably pick up on the similar things in your shop. But I mean, these people have been trying new cigars for years and years and years. And the patrons of that cigar shop know that. So, like, when I walk in and Stogie Santa's like, oh, I tried something that I think you'll like, right? Not that even that, like, he liked, because a good cigar sommelier will know the individual patron's taste, flavor, strength profile. They kind of get to know your style. He'll be like, I think you're going to like this. And one of those was HVC. And he was spot on. I'm like, I love this. I'm going to buy boxes of it, right?
Yeah.
It saves you a lot of the work as the patron. I mean, it almost economically, like, I don't know. I guess it is economically sound, because when he hands me something I like, I'm not going to go buy individual sticks to go find out what I like. I'm going to go, I really like that. I got to buy a box. Yeah. And when that box runs out, I'm like, I'm going to go buy another box, right? And I'm going to be my regular box.
You need that guy unless you're willing to spend a lot of money trying things. Just the same for wine and the same for whiskey. I mean, everything varies, and you may like it, you may not like it, and you got to have that person that's like got that. I like the curmudgeon is the important word.
Yeah, because they got to be really critical about.
You don't want
what
a salesperson.
Yeah,
you want
exactly.
a person who's going,
right.
I tried this, it sucks, and then they're going to tell you the truth. They're not just going to try to sell you something, and that's really important to have if you can find somebody like that.
And like each cigar place has its own delivery of the sommelier.
I
right?
totally agree.
So
I love Janet to death. Jan is awesome, but she'll do the same thing to your point, Joe.
Yep.
But in like a different way, right?
The best is when I walk into a shop and I pick it up, and they're like, "What about this?" Like, you can't smoke that. You will not like that. And to me, that goes a long way. Another shop, you can't smoke that because if you hate it, you're gonna bitch about it for 6 weeks, and I really don't want to hear it for 6 weeks. Adam next door, great delivery.
Adam will do the same thing.
He sees me walk around. He turns around. He goes, "Smoke this."
Yep.
And then
he'll do the same thing with me. He'll be like, "You tried this?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "I think you should try this." And like, yeah, dude. Like once you develop that rapport, it's a trust thing. Like I trust you now.
Then I have other.
And I haven't hated everything Adam's given me. I have not hated it. Some like more than others.
Sure.
But he's getting to know my kind of profile a little better.
I think what's super cool is obviously if you frequent a shop and you see them do it with other people besides yourself, it's like that's the business that gets it.
Yeah,
because now
they're listening and paying attention.
Because they're understanding their customers, and I think more shops need that. Other shops, there's a newer shop over in Middletown, and I go there and the rep's sitting there, and the rep's trying to sell them the Alandino series.
Yep.
Right, and I'm like, dude, it's all about the Corojo Reserve. Like if you're gonna go Aladino, the big box and everything is good,
Right.
But it's the Aladino Corojo Reserve, and when the rep goes, it's pretty tasty. He knows his shit. Like it's like, okay, you know what I mean?
It's true, Joe. It's a great point. It works in reverse
Right.
too. I think most shops have that like core group of people that they trust, right? So they may try to bring something in. You may give one of your kind of core group of people like, hey, try this. Let me know what you think. Is this something we should bring in? Right. So it's not just the shop owner that's making the decision. It's the patrons, and it has to be both. Right.
Yep. And a good shop owner who listens to his patrons, you know, I've always divided it, even pre-Stogie Geeks, I've always say, I like this, but this is not going to sell.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because obviously I used to own a cigar shop, so I understand. I obviously pay attention to consumer behavior, see a lot of stuff on social media, and I'm like, you know, absolutely, like this is super cool. Like for example, a shop brought in Dapper, right? And like I'm a fan of Dapper. Like if I could put them in my categories, they're probably in my top 3 for this year, right? Obviously being Rojas number 1, right? But still, like, and he's like, I'm doing very well with Dapper. I'm doing very well with Rojas. And what did he say last night? He's like, what do you think about this? Give me a couple seconds to have some more whiskey and think about the conversation. And I'm like, oh no, it was the Ezra Zions. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, I remember those.
Ezra Zion, and I'm like, that's too nerdy for your audience.
Yes, you got to know your audience. Yeah.
And then he goes, I agree. And then, you know, away the conversation went. So yeah.
With respects to aging cigars as well, kind of a segue and smoking what you like, but I think smoking it when it's in its prime is something that I'm struggling with now.
Yes.
Because I was having a conversation at a cigar shop, and we started talking about like cigars 10 years ago.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, it's night and day.
Like what do you smoke now? Like some of the stuff, because I've amassed like such a collection, I'm like, I got some of those kicking around. Let me go back and smoke them. And then it's like a crapshoot. I'm like, this is either like still pretty good. It usually falls in those categories. Like, yep, still good, or like this is not good anymore. Like this is aged out or has no flavor. Does wine do the same thing?
Yes, it does.
Yes.
Because it's still aging in the. Is it aging in the bottle? There's still a chemical process
and
happening.
just like cigars, wine. There are all different kinds of wines, and some wines are supposed to be drunk when they're like fresh. Some wines are supposed to age for years and years and years.
Yeah.
And so, and you have to kind of know that. So again, and from vintage to vintage, they may have different longevity. But like, you know, you see people, you wouldn't see somebody drinking a really old Beaujolais. Say they would be like, really? I've had people to say that kind of stuff, you know, and you're like, that's interesting. What do you mean it's old? And they're like, oh, it's like 15 years old. And they're like, okay, so it's basically a bottle of water.
I feel like Connecticut cigars are cigars that are very mild in strength. Not just Connecticut's, right? But any cigar that's kind of mild in strength, as it ages, it's going to kind of mellow out over time. And that's not a hard and fast rule. So you typically wouldn't age your box of Connecticut's that are pretty mild, because when you smoke them 15 years from now, it's going to be like smoking air. Yeah. The equivalent of drinking water with, you know, when you mention wine.
I have a business prediction that I want. Just go with me for like 30 seconds on this. You know how you have the major regions, Honduras, Dominican, Nicaragua?
Yeah.
Okay. We obviously know, it's all public knowledge everywhere, there is a Nicaraguan boom. I bet you, which we're going to find out 6, 7, 8 years from now, Honduran, Dominican tobacco ages better than Nicaraguan. And the reason why we're shortening the gap of the aging process is because we're, as consumers, we're participating in the Nicaraguan boom. Does that make sense? No?
No. Elaborate.
Okay.
I was doing other things while you were saying that too.
Okay. No. I'm saying it because, you know, because this conversation comes up all the time. Why 10 years from now was I so fascinated with these brands, right? Whatever they are. And then now it's like you have to smoke them now or like 3 months from now, but you wouldn't let them age, say, more than 2 years. And I'm thinking because most of the cigars that we're consuming now as consumers are Nicaraguan. Because if you go into anyone's humidor from a retail space, 70, that's my number, 70% is a Nicaraguan-based cigar. What I'm saying is that if you get a Dominican cigar or a Honduran cigar, it ages a little bit better. So that timeline might not be 2 years. It could be 4 to 6 years.
I think that depends on the blend, not necessarily the origin, right?
Okay.
I really do.
You know, because like whenever we talk about aging, we're not mentioning HVC, Tatuaje, Viaje, Falto. Like we're mentioning like those classic, La you and I were talking about like the La Aurora.
Mention more of the classic.
Or most of the classic, which if you're looking at the region, in my opinion, it's there.
Yeah, I don't think there's hard and fast rules. I think all cigars, much like wines, age very differently. And it's hard to, because you could have a cigar that comes out of a Dominican cigar manufacturer, but maybe it's got some Nicaraguan tobacco in it. Maybe it's got some different primings in it. Lancero primings, which are very strong, which can withstand that aging process and still have some flavor left in it after 10 years, right? So I think it depends on a number of factors, which is why I wanted to bring it up, because I think there are no hard and fast rules. In a cigar that was great in 2011, so EPC Carrillo Edición Limitada 2011 was called the Dark Ritual.
Yep.
And I was like, I bought a box, and I didn't want to smoke the whole thing. I wanted to for whatever reason, I wanted to let them age. And then I was talking to some of my friends, and they're like, yeah, you should smoke those now, because they're like, it ain't getting any better, and in fact, it's on a downward swing. And you don't know that unless you've sat on them, aged them, and smoked them throughout time.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask, as a person who doesn't have the deep knowledge you do, when you do buy something, how do you know how long you should age it? If you buy a box of cigars, and if I order, so I buy a box of cigars this afternoon, and I don't know that much about it. How do I know when I open the box that I shouldn't smoke these? I should put them away for 5-6 years, or I should smoke a hell of these and they should be done this week.
That's a good question.
I think there's two. I think there's two that you can put in the I can tell you exactly which ones and roughly how long you should age them before you should smoke all of them before a certain time. I think Cuban cigars in general age pretty well. I think you can let those sit, and it's something with the tobacco. We've talked about aged Cuban cigars. I think once you get past 15, 20 years, this rule doesn't apply, but I think you can put Cuban cigars away for a pretty long time and you're good. 10, 15 years, sometimes even longer. They just don't seem to lose a lot of their characteristics and flavor over that period of time. Opus X, just from smoking them, as long as we have, I think we can tell you 5-6 years is the kind of the peak. Anytime between 3 years and 5-6 might be pushing it. That's the time to smoke them. Pretty much anything else, it's tough. Some other people might have formulas, and I'd love to hear from our audience on this one, right? But I think anything else, it's tough to have that prescription other than you smoke them when you first get them, right? That's maybe when you smoke one and determine whether you want to buy a box. And then something I've been really bad at is going back and checking in on it. How's it doing after 6 months, a year, 2 or 3 years, right? And you may hit that point where you can be like, I really like the way it's smoking now. It's a lot less intensity. I can tell it's lost some since the first time I smoked it. And it might be on the downward swing, and then I got to dig in and smoke that one.
Well, so you'd almost need multiple humidors. So at least this is what I do with wine. So I have a wine rack that's where this is wine we're going to drink.
Yes.
Right. So this is wine that's sitting here that we should drink, and it's got your Beaujolais, and it's got your your Pinot Grigios or somewhat just sitting there. This stuff you buy it and you drink it when you get it.
Yeah.
But then I've also got a rack down in the basement that's stuff that's probably should sit for a while. So now you've got. You have your Bordeaux's and your Burgundies and stuff like that you might want to let sit for, I don't know, a long time maybe. And then I've got my deep storage This is where I put bottles that I don't plan to drink. Like I may never open that. Like I have a bottle that's from 1963 of port.
Sure.
And I don't know if I could ever bring myself to open it. It may have already gone, because I only have one. So I can't open one and see how it's doing. It's like it's all or nothing, and then I can never bring myself to open. But I think you almost need some different humidors to put stuff in, so that you don't see it and smoke it anyway.
Right.
Because that would be my thing. It was just like, okay, I'm smoke this, and it's like, oh, I was planning to age that for 5 years. It's gone. Sorry.
But I mean, same thing with cigars. You could have one or two, and you're like, maybe you got one, maybe you got two. If you got two, like, oh, okay, I smoked one, and like, I want to put the other one away.
Yeah.
Special occasion. I want to see how it's going to age.
Put that in your deep storage.
But my problem is, what do you do if you like it? See, that's why.
Like,
it's like
is it going to get better? That's where I'm at. That's exactly where I'm at.
But
Joey.
you're more you are far more disciplined than I am with that, because you always come up, through a weekly basis. Whenever I'm in studio, you're like, hey, have this. It's been aging for 4 years, 2 years, 3 years. Me, I'm like, yeah, it's been aging for like 45 minutes. I just bought it next.
Yeah, that sounds more like my thing. It's just like, I got a box of these, and I smoked them all this week. So yeah,
like Paul's disciplined like that. Like it's
with cigars, not with whiskey.
Sure, but
Nothing
it's like,
lasts. Not that whiskey's aging in the bottle, but like with whiskey, like if it's in my house, like it's going. I'm drinking it.
But I do like to keep cognac, because even though it doesn't really age in the bottle, I just like to keep it because it's like, it's so good, and you may never get it again. And it's like, I don't buy like cases of cognac. I couldn't afford it. So if I have a bottle, like I have some bottles of cognac that have been sitting down there for years and years and years and years, I just can't bring myself to open them.
I agree. Yep.
I always like, I'll save this for a special occasion. And it's like, my wife's like, hey, our daughter was born. I'm like, nah.
I'm like, it's Tuesday. Let's do some drinking.
dude. Dude. I'm very notorious for that. Like, just. And then if I like it, like, I'm screwed, because then like
you smoke. I know once you get on
I get
something,
fixated on that addiction. Even though I know it's gonna end soon, I enjoy the moment of when it's there soon, or when I'm in the moment, and then like I know it's gonna go away, but I'm totally cool with it.
So and I know some of our listeners are probably going, well, what did you think of that Dark Ritual from EPC? I actually liked it. I thought it was perhaps not as good as when I first was smoking them, but I thought it was pretty amazing. It was dialed back. Like, some of that flavor profile did kind of age out, but enough of it was there that I think this was the recommendation from my friends that were like, smoke it now. And I think they were kind of leaning towards like, it might be aged out, but I was like, if you've still got these, my advice is to smoke them all right now and enjoy them, because I think they're still good now. If you wait another year or more, it could be a disastrous. It could be like drinking the wine that tastes like water now. I think it's a good analogy.
And we've all done that. I mean, we've all had stuff that aged out, and it's very sad when you have something and you say, I waited too long.
Right. Or something that you age, and you're like, this is going to be great with age, and you age it, and it's not necessarily aged out. Like, it still has flavors, but they're the same flavors that you weren't really
had right up front.
That you could have had right up front. And that's where I'm at with this Oasis friggin' level cigar that we rated in 2014 when they came out, and that's the La Aurora 100 Años Edición Especial. These were Robustos, not short Robustos, regular Robustos, dark oily wrapper. When they first hit the market, we literally, like, the delivery came in off the truck and we smoked them. And I was like, this is one of the best cigars I think I've ever had in my life. And I bought a bunch from that initial batch, and then I'm like, I got to get more. I was like a crack addict. I'm like, I got to get more. And so I bought more. And then I think I bought a box online. I think I found a box online, because the retailers like didn't have, you had to buy like a ton of La Aurora, and you got like one or two of these boxes. And then they noticed the market demand. They came out with more. And when I bought that box, it was like the re-release. I even think the cellophane was slightly different. It was not as good. And I'm like, oh, it must just it needs more age, right? Like the first one that I smoked that came in that initial batch, that must have been like sitting in their aging room for a little longer. So I just need to age them. So I got the second batch, and I was like, not great. I'm like, and actually I bought some more from some other cigar friends that were like, yeah, like we listened to the show, Paul, and we bought some, and I'm not a big fan, and I bought them off of them. So I've got like an initial batch, a whole box, and like a whole bag of 10 or 15, right, that I bought because I was like, this is going to be great. They just need to age. And then like over the years, I've been smoking them every now and again, and I'm like, it's not great. Must need to age longer. Still not great. Must need to age longer. So,
but sometimes it's just not good. Yeah,
sometimes it's just not good.
Like, yeah.
I don't know what the magic was in the batches. If they had to switch out the tobacco, the grow, I don't know. I don't know. Or maybe it's my palate. I don't know. I mean, Manuel Anoa's one of
your palate's in decline.
He is one of the most amazing blenders in the world, and so he signed one of my boxes of these cigars. I don't know.
So Tim writes on the YouTube chat, are you guys going to talk about bourbon?
Yeah.
But he also says, why do we need laptops? And my answer to you, Tim, is how would I know how you're asking questions on the YouTube Live? But I posted that.
Mostly my
laptops
notes.
Are cool.
I wanted to make sure I talked about that cigar, and the reason I can tell you what year and the exact name is because it's in the, on my screen.
Yep. I like bourbon with cigars for sure. I like them all. Bloody Marys, anything.
I think
I'm a good time.
Speaking of,
I like wine. I love coffee with cigars. I like bourbon.
I think the common theme there, Joe, is just cigars. So it's like as long as you have a cigar, you're happy. It's the rest is just, oh yeah, I'll drink this motor oil as long as I've got a cigar.
I'm a good time. Why do you think Paul keeps me around?
One of the we like to have a good time here on the show, for sure.
That is true.
I think that one of the better bourbons out there in terms of value.
Oh, I guess Tim is a cyber guy because he said, "LOL." I thought Sam was monitoring the chat. Sam does not monitor this chat at all, Tim. There you go. Go ahead.
Which one is it? It wouldn't be. Is it $88 a bottle? No, all their bottles look the same. $17.92, right? Is the brand of bourbon.
Yeah.
The bottle is absolutely beautiful, and I'm trying to think of which one that I buy. That is maybe. It's got to be the full proof. It's not because it's not $100 a bottle. It's got to be the $47, maybe $89 a bottle. One of those is the one that I buy all the time. Yeah, $17.92 full proof Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. It's hard to get prices online from a
they're all over the place.
They're all over the place for bourbon, like because I see as low as $45 and as high as $70. So who knows what I pay in the store. I tend to look and go like that's the $40 bottle, but it's like the one up from that. I think it's the full proof because all their bottles look pretty similar. That's my favorite for the value. I want to say I pay around $50 in the store. Online might be the kind of exaggerated price. That to me
that sounds about like the
for
price
value.
Of it. Yeah,
for value is unbelievable. For $50 for a bottle, the bottle's beautiful and the bourbon tastes amazing.
Tim states that's wheat bourbon you're talking about.
I think I believe that's correct.
He's obviously a fan of yours because he thought Sam was monitoring the chat.
Right,
so,
right.
Well, if anybody that knows us knows Sam is monitoring just about everything.
But the show.
We can't function without Sam monitoring, so at least I can't.
No. So you asked me what I've been smoking lately. You know how Falto has come up with the one size limited runs for all of his stuff? He's actually produced a cigar that is quote unquote available in different sizes. It's available next door. It's very tasty. That's all I gotta say.
Interesting.
And the only reason why I don't know the name is because it's that classic case of I walked in, Adam hands to you. He handed it to me.
Yep.
I cut it. I didn't think about it. I had it, and then I bought it again, and I liked it again. So I'll get back to. I'll put that on Discord or something. But yeah,
I gotta try that now.
which I think is fascinating because now it's available in 3 different sizes, which is interesting because if you follow Louis Falto, which we've had him as an interview on the show, and you and I interviewed way back in 2017 someone from Falto as well, where they do the one blend, one size. Now they kind of, it's the first when they changed their business model.
Nice.
So interesting. And they have a Lancero, which I suggest a Lancero.
Yeah, how you liking that Lancero, Doug?
It's very nice. I mean,
It's different, right?
Yeah, it is
It's small,
different, but
right?
it's a really. These are just such nice cigars anyway. Though you can hardly go wrong, I think. But
How's your King Power? I had not heard of that size before.
It
Looks like it's producing a good amount of smoke.
Yeah, smoke's awesome. Retrohale, you get that white pepper. It's super tasty. Lingers, burns slow. Totally enjoying it.
The Forbidden X is really awesome. I mean, 6 years into aging, I mean, it still actually burns a little on the retrohale, to be quite honest.
When I do
got
the
some punch to it,
retrohale, it gets there. But it's just very
I think we're
tasty.
smoking these at the right time. It's hard to know.
Which is that, well, in this case, it'd be 6 years, right?
Yeah, roughly 6 years.
So 6 years. So anything over 6 years, because we've smoked Opus X over 6 years of multiple sizes
Yes.
in multiple blends off camera during our normal business days. And again, we're like, Addie's kind of aged out. And you can really tell because even when you retrohale, you get no tingle, you get no substance from the smoke, you get no lingering effect. On my palate, that's how I could tell the difference, where I get no lingering effect of the taste.
Yeah.
You know
what's interesting too is we years ago smoked something from the original Opus, like when it was first released in 98, sometime in the 90s.
it was like 97. That was when I got the box with the attorney. He was like, "This is the most expensive cigar." He didn't know anything about cigars either. But it was
so this cigar had been aged for almost 20 years, maybe 18-ish years, and it was interesting, and we've talked about this in the past, the first third, even a little less than the first third, was amazing. All you got from that was this amazing flavor. It was part cinnamon, a little bit of cedar, and sweetness, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. And then at the drop of a hat, all of a sudden, that went away. And the rest of the cigar tasted pretty much like air. Now, that's something you can't replicate in wine, right?
Well,
perhaps. I mean, you have different. Yeah. I mean, you have the initial taste, and then do they call it it's not the aftertaste, right? But it's after you take the sip and you swallow it. Yeah. Then there's that. It's a different. Flavor but that you get.
That would be pretty consistent, I think.
It would be consistent
a whole glass
throughout
of
the glass.
wine. Yeah,
right,
it's not
correct.
like the first third of the glass was good, and then it kind of went downhill.
You should let it air out and open up. too.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, but the same for whiskey.
Yeah,
really,
it's a good idea.
Beer too, you think?
I don't know much about beer.
I don't think beer.
I mean, people decant whiskey. I mean, so they definitely decant it and let it air out, and that does bring. I think that brings additional flavor out of it. Unless it's awful.
What do you mean by decant it? They put it in a decanter.
They take it out of the bottle. Yeah,
take it out of the bottle and you put it in another bottle to let it breathe, and it only has a stopper on it.
I've seen them use it fancy decanters like they use for wine that swirl it and all kinds of stuff and aerate it and all kinds of things.
Because the decanter, I was thinking about that too. It's not a proper seal. When you drop the glass top in the seal, it lets some air in. Right. So that should be the one that you're drinking.
But it's the process of decanting is where the air gets introduced anyway.
When you pour the whole bottle. I see. Okay.
And then they let wine let it circulate in the air for a while, and it opens it up.
I don't think that translates necessarily to cigars. I mean, you some people do say you should take a cigar out of the humidor and let it kind of acclimate.
Mm-hmm. Probably to the temperature. I mean, maybe just even the humidity and temperature of the room.
Yeah. So it's not as damp, kind of as much humidity as you would have it in the humidor.
Don't wait too long. Jeff and I were smoking those cigars out in South Dakota that time, and they were freezing.
Yes. Yeah, because the cold will.
Mine was freezing because it was minus 15 degrees, and we were using Wyoming whiskey to keep us from freezing to death in that little lean-to. And only with Jeff.
The only thing I noticed with beer, if you ever go to a craft beer place, where when you order a drink and they pour it in the cup, they take the cup upside down and they pour it, and then warm water swishes the glass.
Yep.
And then they pour it, and that's similar to. And I was at a whiskey and a scotch event where if you take an eyedropper and just put a drop of water, not an ice cube, and it opens it up. But I don't know if that's suspect or show.
I had some really good beer, and I bought a bunch of it. My friend, I happened to catch him. Ironically enough, we're dropping our kids off at school. He's like, dude, I'm going to Trillium Brewery today. And so I actually handed him $100. Like, whatever you want to get, right? Because I'm like, I'm not going to make that trek, especially this week. It's like, I'm going there. And dropped it off last night. I had one of their IPAs last night. Amazing.
Yeah.
Like the breweries that my friend John will choose make the IPAs the way they're supposed to be made. It's like really I really don't drink a lot of IPAs other than if like John's going to one of the breweries and I'm like, yeah, get me some IPA because it just has this like fruitiness to it. It's not overly hoppy. It's very well balanced. I'm like, that's really good.
Yeah, those are good. I mean, we were on the last. It was 2 weeks ago on the show. We were drinking some really good stuff too. There's like coffee, some kind of.
Oh yeah, we had the
Smug.
coffee.
Was it Smug Coffee peanut butter.
Coffee peanut butter.
Yeah,
Coffee
yeah,
peanut.
yeah.
And
Which
actually,
sounds absolutely horrible.
It
but
does.
It's
But
awesome.
I tell you what, it goes good with cigars.
It was really
You
good,
know,
yeah.
chocolate and peanut butter is like a great pairing. Like that
But it just
flavor
doesn't sound like
profile.
something you want in an alcoholic beverage.
I think chocolate goes well with cigars, and peanut butter goes
does.
well with chocolate, and wine as well. I like
Yeah, it can. Depends on what you're drinking, but yeah.
cheese. Not so much with cigars, but
Yeah.
cheese with the wine
Cheese
and
with
beer.
wine
And
is-
beer.
Yeah.
But all that stuff's you have to get the right stuff. You have to make the right matches. Or,
I agree.
I mean, if you take like a really stinky cheese and you put it up there, you know, with like a really delicate wine, it's just gonna blow it. It's just like with anything, it's gonna blow it right out of the
that's
water.
general
and-
pairing advice for really any
for
kind
anything,
of booze,
yeah.
cheese,
or
cigar,
just food. It's like don't
food, booze, and cigars. Right, you got to make the right.
Don't put raw garlic on your truffles.
Well, we're going to the game dinner.
Yeah.
That's a similar kind of thing because I
It
find
is.
those meats go really well.
Well, yeah,
with
because they're
cigars.
strong and they go well with the smoke and all that. And
Right.
it's just,
Do we drink whiskey or wine or both? I mean,
Well,
it
you
doesn't
hope-
really.
Well, they probably have courses. I mean, all the game
Yeah.
dinners I've ever been to, they had multiple courses, and some of them had whiskeys, some of them had wines, some of them had water, and then they had cigars with every course that were different strengths, and
right.
it was a lot of fun. I like those things.
Another cigar. Have you guys had the 858 sun-grown Rosado? Rosado sun-grown?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Now, I want to say, because that...
Super tasty.
All right, so this post that I'm looking at goes back to 2013, right? And I want to say Mark Jr. at the time, who was a host on this show, and a good friend, had some 858 Rosados. And he's like, dude, you never had one? I'm like, dude, I've never seen that cigar. Like, it's so limited. I've never seen that cigar in my life. I've read about it, but I've never seen it. He's like, all right, I think we traded for one, right? Because I had some stuff that he wanted to smoke. I'm like, I'll trade you for it, absolutely. So we traded. And I think the one he gave me was really aged, right? Because they don't come out very often, and he had inherited some, and he's like, this has been sitting for a long time. Now, they recently released them. Like, they seem to be, like, there was a run of them this year. I talked about it last week, where I got quite a few, like more than I've ever imagined myself having in my lifetime. I have, 15 or so right now, roughly. I actually like these when they're not aged, more so than when they're aged. I don't think they're bad when they're aged, but like if I were to smoke them, I would want them. I think they're smoking fantastic right now. There's no need to age them.
But you just have to live with the dilemma that, what if I'd waited?
Yes, that's and you're spot on. That's the other aspect of this conversation is like, I won't know what they'll smoke like, or the wine will taste like, or the beer will taste like if I consume it all now. I'll never know.
So,
And that varies per batch too. Like the batch of 858 that was aged, I smoked in roughly 2013. I mean, there's slight differences. I mean, what you want to pretend that like cigar blends are cigar blends, but there's slight differences in them. Will this like year's release be the same or different once I age it? That's hard.
well,
when we
I
talk
think
about all
my
these things.
philosophy is, are you enjoying it?
Yes.
If you are, just enjoy it, because who knows? If you want to save everything in a box somewhere, yeah, that's nice and all, but hey, what the hell?
I also want to say one last note on the aging thing. Viaje had some like really amazing releases back probably in the same time frame around 2013. I wonder if any of them got that Oasis rating. There were some that I thought were Oasis kind of level cigars. and I don't remember which ones they are. They're on our website. If we did rank one Oasis, Skull and Bones. Okay, so take the Skull and Bones Daisy Cutter. Absolutely. You know, that was an Oasis level cigar when it came out. Probably held that rating for quite some time and with aged. I think I had one, and by the time someone had, it was the same thing. Someone had like traded me for it, right? Because it had been released 6 years ago and not released again. And I'm like, God, maybe it was released again, but it was a different blend, right? And so the original Daisy Cutter, I think I traded someone for, and I was like, that's really good, but they're like, it was even better when it first came out. And a lot of that older Viaje stuff that I've smoked, they had those double torpedoes. They've had a lot of releases, right? It's just, it hasn't, smoke them now. Like I didn't notice that it had gotten any better. The age had been really, truly kind. Not to say they're bad cigars or, you know, whatever, but yeah.
Yeah, I used to be such a fan when I first came here. You know, there wasn't a show where I couldn't.
I've given you a lot of my older Viaje stuff too, and
like
you haven't been like overly impressed.
No,
either.
because there wasn't a show that I couldn't mention Tatuaje or Viaje for a long time, like back in 2017. And now it's like I've tried some of the new stuff for this year, and it's good. But like last year, they came out with like the birthday cake and whatnot, and I'm like, yeah, you know, it's good. Jason Albuquerque posted the HVC hot cake on our Discord.
Yes,
and that's a great stick, great size. Small little Robustos, the little firecrackers.
Oh, I had one of those. Those are good. I like those a lot.
I bought a box of those. Put those in there.
And of course, if Joe brought it in, I smoke it all.
You've blown through a lot of HVC stuff.
Pedro Millennium was another one
that didn't age well.
That I think aged up to a certain point, and like by the time I got to one, because like you read about these cigars, it was released in 2000, right? The Millennium Edition is sometimes is referred to as, and like you talk to like your cigar friends that were smoking in that time. That was before I was like really into cigars, right? I mean, I was smoking cigars, but not like as many as I smoke now, and into the different brands, and have my own. I didn't even have my own humidor at that point, but maybe I did, but I wasn't into collecting. So like I'd talk to people, and they're like, Pedro Millennium was one of the best cigars ever released. And by the time I traded for one, was probably in the 2013-ish time frame, and I smoked, and they're like, it was way better when it first came out. Like it definitely, it was still good, but it was, you know, not what it was when it first came out.
I'll tell you what did age well. It was about a month ago. You gave me a pork tenderloin.
Yeah,
that was from when I like started the show. So 2017, right?
Yeah, we had to go to an event to get that pack. Yeah,
perfect.
Still good.
Totally aged well.
We should probably smoke all those now and probably not sit on them.
I agree.
Because that's what I'll do. I'll get something like rare that's really good, and I'll be like, I don't want to smoke it. Like I want to have these for the rest of my life. And I think the realization I'm coming to now is that fucking let's smoke them.
That's the F off section.
The F off section.
I think that should be opened up today after the show.
Yeah, I'll take that to heart.
I think we should open that up today, and we should smoke them.
Let's go smoke some pork tenderloins. Sure.
Because you gave it to me, and of course, in true Joe fashion, let me smoke this now. And I'm like,
no reason to wait.
There's no reason. I'm like, dude, this freaking thing. I'm like,
you got one of them. What are you going to do? Put it in the humidor and stare at it? Right? I mean, I've got a few left in the bundle, and I've just been staring at them. Like, those are. I think your thinking is like with Doug's wine cellar. You go in there and you look at it once in a while. Like, yeah, I'm aging though. It's going to be amazing. Like when I decide to drink that wine or smoke that cigar, it is going to be even more amazing than when I first had it. And I guess the whole purpose of this, little segment is. That's not the case all the time. It's just not.
It's not. Yeah.
You know that feeling when you're not smoking cigars and your eyes roll in the back of your head? That's the pork tenderloin.
Yeah.
For me, I'm like, this freaking cigar. I'm like, and because I have this conversation weekly wherever I go. What's your favorite non-Cuban cigar? And I tell people it's a unicorn now because it's $52 on the street now if you want to buy them. They're aged. Right, and I'm like, it's the Tatuaje pork tenderloin. Like, are they really worth it? I'm like, yeah. And people have emailed me like, yeah, dude, like that's a really good cigar.
So Jason's already called it. January Stogie Geeks. We're all gonna smoke pork tenderloins.
Oh, wait, January? You mean February? Oh, no, January.
No, we're doing one in January.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry.
So we're in a monthly cadence. We're doing
sorry.
in January.
I'm doing bookings for January and February.
Jason's
so my
in the
mind,
chat.
I'm already.
Yeah, a couple of our other hosts were under the weather. Adrian was busy trying to get some deliverables out. And Bill and Jason were under the weather this week. So Jason's in the chat, jonesing for a cigar, I'm sure, and going, yeah, like in January, Tatuaje, and we'll smoke pork tenderloins. I'm down with that. I'm down with that.
I'll be there.
Yeah.
We're doing the show
That's one of your
January
favorite-
2nd. We're pushing the agenda up. And then there you go.
Joe's gonna be here January 1st. Going, I thought we were doing Stogie Geeks today. I'm smoking a pork tenderloin. What are you talking about?
It's January.
It's January. Let's smoke them.
Yeah. I got a 7-month-old, so I'm up at 550.
There you go.
And a 3-year-old.
No, that was good. I think that's some sound advice that in talking with my friends, I had realized that I let stuff sit for too long. You know, I think the other kind of fear with that is like I'm going to smoke all the cigars in my humidor or something, right? I think as long as you're acquiring some new stuff that you can age, you can safely go back and smoke the older stuff, right? And getting the newer stuff can be a little stressful for me. I'm like, if I smoke this older Opus and I'm not replacing it with newer ones, like I get a little like anxiety. But I think I'm over it now.
How many do you have? Because to
Of
me,
what?
it's like
Cigars? A lot.
No. I'm talking about the Opus because like you always come in with that or a Padron. Like
Because
you
I make sure that every year I buy some Opus, right? And I try and be diligent about like labeling the bag or the box to know when I bought it. So like I want to always, like once you start, it's kind of like, again, like an anxiety thing. Like I always want to have Opus that's 3 to 6 years old that I can smoke. So that means like right now in this year, I got to go buy a box, and I've gotten like better. I tend not to buy singles. Like I want to go buy a box, right, of a size that I know I'm going to like, and then I just put a date on it and let it sit. So then I'm smoking.
I mean, that's what you have to do, though. If you want to actually, with wine or whatever, if you want to be a collector, connoisseur of those things,
you have to always be collecting.
You always have to be planning for that horizon out there in the future where you're going to drink this. Because like we used to buy wine futures all the time, still do.
Mm-hmm.
So every year I buy a couple of cases of wine futures, and when I get those cases, those go in there and they sit for depending on what it is, they're going to sit for a while. But just like you're doing with the cigars, you're always replenishing that stuff that's coming off the top, and you can go down and move it and say, I'm going to move these should probably be drunk now. But you do get in that trap of not wanting to drink things you like a lot, and you get down to those last couple of bottles and go, oh, I don't want to open this, because I opened a bottle of wine not too long ago that was like, oh, this is the last one of these. I mean, it's
sad.
literally
It's
the
sad,
last one.
right? Smoking the last one in the
And
box,
it's
the last
sad.
bottle. Yeah,
It's like, this is the last one of these, and there's not any more. I mean, it's
you're not going to enjoy it any more or less if it's the
I know,
last
but
bottle or the
it's
first
just the
bottle.
keeping
but
it. It's like you said, you want to say you have that,
right?
So you can go, I have that downstairs, and you can't touch it.
I think what we need to come around to is that like I had those and I really enjoyed them when they were in their prime.
Yeah,
more so than I think you're right, Doug, with wine and cigars especially. You want to say like, oh, I still have an Opus from 2007, right? Because I have it, but I let it age too long. Like I probably should have smoked it.
Then you kind of regret it, and it's like, but it's easy to do, and it's a game. I mean, you're always playing those games with wine and cigars.
Absolutely.
How long is too long, and how long is not long enough?
See, pipe tobacco is different, right? I have pipe tobacco from my shop when I closed in 2003.
I have some Davidoff pipe tobacco that's from
a
really long. And like as much as I smoke a pipe, I bought 1 tin of Davidoff pipe tobacco because Stogie Santa had some laying around, had fallen behind the shelf kind of thing, and that's the only one.
But if you sealed cigars, if you sealed them, you didn't put them in a humidor, you actually sealed them like pipe tobacco is sealed, I bet they would keep a lot longer. I bet if you had a container like you put pipe tobacco in that's airtight. I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying. But I mean, pipe tobacco does seem to persist, because I have some pipe tobacco from like 2003 or 2004. Yeah. It's never been opened. We know it's good because they put it out every year, as I was telling you about earlier, that Christmas cheer pipe tobacco. And Lou and I always used to buy a tin of it. And then a lot of time, I mean, I didn't smoke pipes all the time. And a tin of pipe tobacco will last you like years.
Years, yeah.
I mean, and so I would just not open them. And then I got in this thing of I don't want to open it. I'm going to keep it. So I got it sort of souvenir kind of thing. But I know if I went to those like 2002, 2003 tins of Christmas cheer
It would still smoke
and
pretty
open
good.
them, it would be all moist and nice, and it would still be what it was because it's been sealed in that can. So I don't know if you put a cigar in something sealed like that, it would last more than if you've got it in a humidor or something like that. I don't know that. But
Yeah, it's weird because it's all tobacco, and tobacco should be able to breathe and be exposed to air in the right temperature and humidity
yeah.
to support the aging process. But you're right.
But you don't do that with pipe tobacco.
you
You'd think
could
you'd almost
seal.
take pipe tobacco and put it in a humidor for a while or
I
something.
do. Well, so I put it in a Ziploc bag, and I put it in my humidor.
And that's why you have so much trouble with the police.
That's true. They see those Ziploc baggies.
Oh, what do we got here?
like individual Ziploc baggies of pipe tobacco. What is that?
What are you transporting
Yeah,
exactly?
it's pipe tobacco.
I'm working on a little bit of that tin of that Christmas chair
Yeah.
that you should bring into the studio. We could smoke it every Tuesday and
Is it good?
Friday when you do your show. He
Well,
hasn't
it's
opened it yet. He hasn't
It's
even
a
know.
different blend every year, so it's a
Yeah.
mystery too. They don't tell you what it is; they just
Right.
sell it, and they make their own custom blend every year. And they sell every year they sell Christmas. It's called Christmas Cheer. And,
So what do? They put like pine needles and cinnamon in it?
No, they
This year eggnog.
they come up with the blend. They probably have a process. They come up with the blend. They put it in the tins, and then they do it. And they still sell Christmas cheer today.
Yeah, no, they make
Like
it
every year. It's and people go crazy and they blow out the tins and they sell it. But some people collect
People
them.
buy it. Lots
And never
of them.
smoke them. And I'm like, dude, why don't you get like the last year you have? Bring it into the studio.
Yeah.
Well, I'll bring you one.
Does it get better with age? Pipe tobacco.
That's what I've always been
I mean,
told.
it's tobacco that would age
Yeah.
like and cigar. Then so
And so 20-year-old Christmas cheer is probably pretty. That's the theory. Is it's really good to smoke.
Nice.
You know, I mean, pipe tobacco is you put it in a. I mean, if you can put it in a glass jar, and just they have the mason jars
Yeah,
that have
yeah,
the seal,
sure.
or the regular glass jars with like the plastic seal. There, I mean, it can go like 10, 15 years as long as it's not in direct sunlight. Like,
Yeah.
like
I usually drop a Bovita pack in there with it.
yeah. You can certainly
some
do
moisture
that.
in
Yeah,
there.
it keeps it moist and whatnot.
Not
They're
like a 72 or whatever, right? Like I might put a 65 in there with the pipe tobacco.
I opened up. It was from my golf bag when I changed golf bags one year. So it sat there over a previous season, and then so 2 years. And I had some Dunhill Early Morning Pipe was the blend, but you can actually re-cure,
Yes.
unlike cigars.
Right.
So if you get like a Mister spray bottle, like a mist, like
You can like rehydrate it.
You can
Yes.
all you do is just take the mixture, you put it in a bowl, you bing bang boom. Or if you want to get like super nerdy, you can get like what is it, like cheesecloth?
Yes.
With like a wet paper towel, and wrap it around a cheesecloth, put it on top, and put it in that glass jar. It re-goes and off you out of the races.
See, cigar tobacco has those oils, and what I'm told is once those oils evaporate, you're not going to get those oils back, and the oils have some of that flavor in it. So if you're rehydrating cigars, inevitably it's going to lose some of their flavor and characteristics because the oils have evaporated.
But if they've never been opened, the oil can't evaporate. It would stay.
It's true.
It would stay in there.
Plus, there's also a construction element of cigars, right? Wrapper, binder, filler, right? Pipe tobacco is layered in, like Virginia is like the baseline, right?
Yeah.
And then you have like you can go Kentucky, or then you can go like Latakia or Perique or whatever. But like Virginia is like the baseline. So, but it's not like constructed and kept together. It's in bulk,
It's
right?
it's
so all you
chopped
do is
up.
take
Yeah.
the glass jar and
Shake it around.
and you're off to the races.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, so it is different. You guys got favorite Connecticut cigars? And we've talked about this in the show in the past. There was an article from Holtz actually on their favorite Connecticut cigars. I don't necessarily agree with the list. I like the EPC New Wave Reserva Toro size. Probably one of my favorite Connecticut cigars of all time. Because like the Connecticut cigars. Again, I don't agree with this list, right? Like it's got, an Ashton Classic, which is a good Connecticut cigar, not one of my favorites. I think it's a little too light. They do have some Fuente on there. Chateau series is good. Again, not one of my favorites. San Cristobal Elegancia is on the list. Again, not bad. I think they were good when they first came out. but not a huge fan today. Interesting, they got the Nub Connecticut on there, and I tell you what, I would substitute on that list if you're looking for a light cigar and you like the Nub cigars, or maybe you don't. The Nub Cameroon is actually really good.
Mm-hmm.
I think
like
it's
those.
I bought a box of those. I don't know if you guys have been smoking them in there. I think they're absolutely fabulous.
Well, I smoked one of those in there. I bought a box of those because
Yeah.
I like them so much.
They were on sale. They were
they
like
smoke really well.
$4 or $5 a stick.
Yeah.
And they smoke great.
They smoke really well.
So I wouldn't go. I bought a box of the Nub Connecticut's, and I like the Cameroon better. And I tell you what, there's not much difference in strength. I would smoke one of those Cameroons first thing in the morning, even before breakfast, and be fine.
Can it be Ecuadorian Connecticut?
Sure,
Gilberto Oliva Reserva Blanc.
those are good.
Like and even when I mentioned it on Stogie Geeks a couple like weeks in a row,
Yeah,
and you just bought a box on a whim.
Yeah.
And you were like, dude, you were spot on with these. I was like, they're freaking awesome.
they've got some construction issues though.
Well, they're only $6.
Yes.
So, I mean,
Yes.
you know, but if you can get a good one, taste in a good box, that is like my staple Connecticut.
I tell you what, the Baccarat is not bad. I mean,
I have had
that
those.
cigar's been around forever.
Yep.
If you're looking for a mild cigar, and I tell you what, there's not like if you're looking for the super mild ones, like there's not much difference between them, right?
Well,
like,
that's what I was gonna
you're
say.
getting a commodity. Baccarats have that sweet cap, and they're not.
I have a box of Baccarat that
for knocking
I bought.
around in the morning. Like if I get
Yep.
in the studio first thing, haven't had breakfast, and I want something I can just knock around. If I leave it in the ashtray or whatever, you know, that kind of style cigar. Baccarats are you can
Well,
get
that's what I
them
bought
for
them
$4
for.
a stick.
I bought them because they were cheap. They were on sale, and I thought I'll give these a shot. And I think I bought those on that auction site, and I bought a box of them, and they were fine. I mean, because
Yeah.
like for me, it's like construction matters a whole lot.
Yep.
I don't care if they're $4. I still don't want it to fall apart. I don't want it to be all broken and awful and not burn. So you know,
Can I have
but
that
yeah,
bottle, Joe?
they were cheap,
sorry. Oh, yeah.
and they smoked well, and I couldn't complain about them at all. And
And I like the sweet cap. I think that's a different, you know, it's a good
not
experience.
all the time, but yeah, it's fine.
Johnny Blaze says the Nat Sherman Metropolitan.
Nat Sherman's lately, whatever like was left from Nat Sherman, has been very different from traditional Nat Shermans.
Well, it's changed. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's kind of funny, Johnny. Like I smoked today because there's this guy at the shop, and he's convinced that it's different blends and how they change.
Yeah,
and
they did.
whatnot.
They changed. There was a
gave
point
me-
in time where like a Nat Sherman was not a Nat Sherman.
Right.
And again, I don't want to knock anyone, but like I'm just saying, my experience, Nat Shermans were not the same at
Right.
some point.
Right. He gifted me the Timeless from the
Yes.
old roller.
The
and
old
then,
roller.
And then the Timeless from the new roller. And I actually did that today.
Oh, so you compared them?
I did that this morning. Like, you know what I mean? Like, which is like weird how
Yeah.
like Johnny and I are on the same wavelength of
the
that.
Sterling.
So
Sterlings used to be awesome.
Yes,
They were
yep.
high in price.
Yep.
And then I started seeing them, and they were like on sale and low in price. I'm like, oh, I'll totally grab a box of Sterlings. And I started smoking them. I'm like, this is not the Sterling that I smoked back in the day.
well, it's because they buy rights to the brand,
yeah.
right?
Okay.
And they buy rights to the name because they
Nat Sherman went out of business.
they closed the Nat Sherman store
in New York.
in New York. That's how it started, and then the brand dissolved, and someone else takes it over, but is able to keep. And I'm making it up like out of 5 blends, I think they kept 3.
Yep.
So then the other 2, but then they changed the names. Which ones? I'm not gonna lie to anyone. Say I know, but it's kind of crazy because like it did change, but not for nothing. Even if it didn't change, the process and harvest, which we know from Manuel and Noah,
Yeah.
it's going to change year to year anyway.
Absolutely.
So if you're a fan of a brand and you smoke it yearly, it's going to naturally change. Which is why you put things in boxes and label them on dates. I wish I was that disciplined.
the
I
good
really
ones.
do.
The good ones.
Because Paul comes in with a bag, it's got like 2017
No, I've seen
on it,
these. Yeah, it's got all the
2016.
information
Dude,
on
it's
there.
got all that. I'm
Bought
like, dude.
from Mitch at
I'm like, this kid is like crazy, but yeah, it's how he is. You know?
You will notice. So I mean, if you smoke, especially you smoke a cigar consistently in the same size, and you can pick up on those subtle changes. And what interviewing multiple blenders and such, right? What I gather is those changes should be so subtle that only your experienced smoker that smokes that cigar is going to pick up on those, right? But there's other blends out there where, like, even if you're not a regular smoker, you can be like, that's different from what I tasted last time.
Yeah.
Wine's the same thing.
Wine is the same. Whiskey's the same thing. I mean,
Absolutely.
year to year, it can be different, and it shouldn't change dramatically, but it might.
Right. I don't know, the Balvenie 12-year double
Yeah,
wood,
it's pretty
man, like,
consistent.
I don't think I've ever met a bottle where I was like, this is different. Like, it's always the same.
Well, I guess, ideally you get above the curve and
Yeah.
you just stay up there. So the variance is all above this, like, detectable threshold, and it
Right.
doesn't make any difference. Then nobody would ever notice. But, some people are bouncing around above and below the curve, and then that's a problem.
Well, because with whiskey, they're not blending, but they're taken from
Yeah.
different years of the same single malt from different years and blending that together. Did I get that right? I want to say we interviewed some people when we talked about that.
Only when they make blended ones, yeah.
But even they make a single malt, they'll take some from the previous year, some from the current year kind of thing, right? And to make it true.
Some they do, I think, but
Yeah.
not all. I mean, like single cask and stuff like that is all, that's like,
In the same.
yeah, I don't think
Cask.
they blend that. I don't know, though. I don't know that much about how they make whiskey. I just drink it.
Yeah. I think, I don't know how variances differ between wine, whiskey, and cigars.
What do you mean variant? Like time?
Like, well, because there's a farming process. in all
Wine
of
varies a
those.
lot.
Farming because you're doing the
because
grapes.
they get rain, sun, disease, dust. There are a dozen
But with
things.
whiskey, it's barley or wheat, right?
It's pretty
Or-
consistent.
It's pretty.
I think
but that's
to me,
more.
to me, whiskey's a lot more consistent
And I
than
wonder
wine.
if that's because it's a more consistent crop.
and
than
wine
grapes
can
or
change
tobacco.
if they have different vintners or somebody
Yeah.
retires
Yeah.
and they get a new person and they say we're going to change this a little bit. They're going to use different, but the casks and all these other things go into it. But a lot of it's in nature. But I would guess that's true to some degree of tobacco too, because it grows.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
And,
it's huge
If it's a
in
big sunny
tobacco.
bright year, it's really dry, and they have to spray water on it or something. Is different than if it's like swampy.
Correct.
So you may get the same product from the same person in a different year. They use different batch of tobacco, and they get a little bit different.
Right.
But it ought to, in a quality, it ought to bounce around that. Only.
And I want to say in those cases, they reserve from some of the crop for like either wine or whatever you're making, right, from the previous year, and they mix that together with the crop from the current year to maintain some of that, right? Because like once you get it started, you could reserve some of your yield from what you farmed to produce the product to keep more of that consistency.
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah,
I want to say someone told me that was true with tequila, whiskey. All these are very similar processes in that you're taking a crop, right, to produce a product.
squishing it up and letting it rot and then consuming it.
Right?
Well,
yeah, pretty much.
You and I were taught about tequila on the tequila episode of Stogie Geeks. That was a 5-hour, 3-bottle drink fest. Remember that? We ordered pizza like during the show.
I remember a few things from that.
Yeah. And so, yeah, absolutely. We should get him back on.
We should.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Super cool.
Oh, God. Oh, God. That was a lot of drunken. I was drunk.
That was a 5-hour and 46-minute Stogie Geeks.
Oh, my God.
About 3 bottles of tequila and no cigars.
What do you guys think about price increases? I saw some articles this week about price increases. I mean, speaking of crops, and then we get into the manufacturing process, the delivery process. Then you've got FDA, the taxing process, the supply chain issues. I mean, all of these are basically lead to price increases that are being passed down to the consumer. I saw everyone from Fratello to, I'm not going to single out any manufacturer, right? I mean, we're seeing price increases across the board.
Alec
Bradley.
yeah, most of the.
Wait, talk about that because I got to go to the bathroom. So
Sure.
I'll be back.
Can you get some cigars too? Because I'm running
Yeah.
out. All right, cool. All right, so because I was gonna do the same thing, only just get cigars, not go to the bathroom. No, like some of the bigger manufacturers, like an Alec Bradley, a Fratello, they want to come out in the open, Doug, and totally just say, hey, listen, 2022, we're gonna raise, across the board, and I'm making a number up, 11%, 8%, whichever, and they give a warning, which I think is kind of interesting because, like, we started the show talking about Opus X, right? And when I started the show back in 2017, when I had the shop back in 2020, Opus X, and I actually had this conversation last night with someone in a cigar shop. Like, back when I owned the shop, Opus X was $22 a stick. You know, it could be $22.50, but average price was 20. Today, they're still $22 a stick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which, like, you know, except for like the exclusives or the charitable stuff or whichever, you know. But it's like if you do an average, and like they withstood the like that test of time, right? And because you know, but some of the other manufacturers now are making an announcement, and like just you know, not to get political, but just inflation it is going up, so the cost of goods sold goes up, right?
Yeah.
What happens naturally? You pass the cost of goods sold onto the consumer. Like
Yeah.
it's normal business behavior. So I really don't think that it's anything bad at all. I just think that it's just a natural process, right? Everything's going up. Shipping's going up. You know, they're making less. The weather elements, you know, you have all this weird weather going on.
The cost of labor.
Cost of labor, right? And stuff like that. So yeah, it just gets kind of rowdy.
Well, I mean, I think all products do that, and
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the average price of a really good cigar was in 1940, but it was probably a lot less than it is today. So
Yeah.
over time, all that stuff sort of slowly escalates,
Right.
and I mean, I don't know how I feel about announcing price increases, but I guess if you're going to do it, you might as well let everybody know. And
Yeah, you got to be transparent about
of course,
it.
it can also be a sales tactic too. Sometimes they announce big price increase coming in 2022 to get you to buy stuff in 2021.
Sure,
you know,
there could be a
and,
numbers push, you know.
And but I mean, I think the truth is that prices are going up. Everything, gas is more expensive, and all that stuff. You know, economics is very complicated, and all that stuff is interrelated. And you know, if gas prices go up in Nicaragua, then to operate a tractor gets more expensive, and if labor prices go up, and so on and so on and so on, and it all just translates.
Well, and a lot of it
into-
is containers and container ships and things like that. All that stuff is more
Right.
expensive, and that's how a lot of the goods get here into the U.S.
Really?
So,
They come in container ships? I mean, I don't know. I'm just curious.
yeah, I mean, I actually don't know like what percentage is flown in versus comes in container ship, but I think the pandemic kind of highlighted how much does come over in
Well,
container
yeah, I mean,
ship,
I know
right?
tons of stuff comes in container ships. I just didn't know they ship cigars that way.
Yeah, I think
No, they do. I've heard some cigar manufacturers that are one of the price increases and struggles they have is getting
Yeah.
goods over here, and they come in container ships. Some come in planes too, but I'm sure that is more expensive. I would
All of
imagine,
that's more expensive,
right?
yeah.
To come in a plane, and then
Yeah.
you can only fly so many planes. Right?
I
There's
don't
only-
know. I
it's a
guess I
limited
was
supply.
imagining like, you know, some guy was rowing across from Jamaica, you know, with all the cigars for the year. Like,
Or it's like a drug cartel. where the
Welcome,
drugs
friends.
Are,
Yeah.
The drugs are flown in a little Cessnas. That
there you go. Stay under the radar. I don't know. Yeah, it's like, I mean, when you say all that, I'm like, well, yeah, it makes sense, but it was kind of a stupid question. But I guess I had a more of a romantic vision of cigars coming into the country, and you know, on the backs of burros or something like
Yeah.
that.
No, a lot of it is containers. And there's a finite supply. And when there's so many floating off the coast of California,
Yeah.
there's not enough containers to put new shit in to send here.
That's
Even if
true.
you're trying to go to a different port, right? Like Florida was like, hey, we've got container ports and they're wide open. Like, come to us. We'll figure it out. We'll get that stuff offloaded way faster than California. I mean, I don't know if that's true, but that, you know, that's what they were saying. The problem is, how do I go get a container if the supply, most of it, is already deployed?
Yeah. Right. It's all sitting on ships somewhere. So
I also think the cigar companies that have a heavier online presence are first to announce that they're going to do a price increase. Fratello, they're online
Yep.
a lot.
Because the price are already low.
Alec Bradley,
So they
they're
can
there.
withstand
So
those, yeah.
it's preparing an audience. I mean, you know,
no, it's it's a smart move business wise, just because
Taxes don't go down. Taxes
Yeah.
only go up. So cigars are the taxes are only going to increase.
Yep.
And so you're going to, for the retailers and for the manufacturers, you got to pass some of that cost down to the consumers.
yeah, absolutely. You know, but I was telling Doug how even from when I owned the shop, Opus X street price was always around $22, you know, a piece.
It varies. Depends on size. Sure.
Yeah, sure, right, and whatnot. And like they've stayed pretty consistent.
They have.
You know what I mean? Like they're priced. You know, the $40 ones 10 years ago, 15 years ago are still $40.
The Davidoffs tend to be the most price protected cigars, and their price is what it is, and it doesn't fluctuate down. Like you don't find them on sale. No. That is, if you do, it's a very, very distinct use case with the retailer, right? That I think is somehow absorbing those somewhere and worked out a deal because they're going to move a certain amount. They're ordering a certain amount of product. They're moving a certain amount of product. That means if they want to give, you spend over $1,000 and we're going to give you a discount. They can get away with that because they're moving so much product, right? And I think that's fair in a market. I think that's fair.
It's pretty standard business model and high end merchandise anyway. Yeah. I mean, whatever it is, because they don't need to put stuff on sale. I mean, that's just you don't see Mercedes having their big year end sale. I mean, it's just that's just not how they operate because it's a different market and it's people. Their objective is to get people to buy their product because they want it. They're not worried about trying to attract. We'll try to get some people in here, then they'll pay more later because they know they won't. So it's just there's no point to it.
I think it's inevitable, and you gotta. It's one of the reasons why I've been going on spending sprees of cigars because I know the prices are only going to go up, and as we talked about with aging, we know these cigars will age for a certain period of time. So I'm like, buy them up before all these price increases.
Now you're in the should I sell this mode of aging.
No, I don't. I think because I'm a collector, and I think that's frowned upon. If you're given the opportunity, especially to buy rare cigars at an MSRP price, because typically rare cigars, if you can't find them at MSRP, you're going to pay above because of supply and demand. So a lot of retailers, I'll say, oh, I really want to buy that. And they're like, yeah, that's cool. Like, you can buy that whole box or set or whatever. And I'm like, this is going online for so much more. And they're like, you're going to sell them? I'm like, no. Like, I'm a collector. I'm not doing this as a business. I'm doing this because I like to consume this product. So I'm going to buy it because it's at this price. I am not going to do what they do with NVIDIA graphics cards and PlayStations and Xboxes and make that, $400 or $1,000. Like, I'm after PlayStation, Xbox, and NVIDIA cards and cigars because I want to be a consumer of that, right? But I don't want to pay an inflated price for it because that's going to be frowned upon from my company. That's frowned upon by my accountants. That's frowned upon when I manage my own cigar budget. I don't want to pay inflated prices, right? Because I'm not trying to make a buck. So we bought an NVIDIA graphics card. It was the most expensive one, but we didn't pay an inflated price for it, right? And that saves us in our, helps us with productivity. And that's why I'm buying it, not, we're in the business of making podcasts. We know how to make our money.
That's just one of those aging. Yeah. That's an aging dilemma, though. If you've got stuff and you suddenly look 10 years later and go, wow, people are selling these for $500 a piece. Maybe you don't, but a lot of other people look at that, whether it's wine or cigars or whiskey or anything else, and they go, wow, I have this bottle of wine that is being sold for $5,000.
Baseball cards are one thing,
especially or anything like that. Yeah,
but that was a boom during the pandemic because a lot of people are like, I'm stuck home. Like, oh, I got all this time on my hands. I'm not traveling. Like, what am I gonna? Oh, let me go clean up my attic. Oh, I got all these baseball cards.
Huh.
There was a backlog of, I forget the place that ranks them. So you pay a fixed price and they will rank your card, right? And then with that ranking, you can go sell it. I mean, I know people that didn't pay for college, but made some college payments based on some of the baseball cards that they were selling, right? Because they had, he was my neighbor that had...
Honus Wagner.
No, Michael. I think it was a Michael Jordan. I want to say it was basketball.
He's not a baseball player. Yeah.
No, I know, but I want to say it was basketball, and it was a Michael Jordan, and he got it ranked, right? And you get 5 between. I mean, what I'm seeing is your really sought after cards, right? We talk about wine and whiskey and cigars, right? Honus Wagner, Babe Ruth, whatever it is. You get your high value cards. I got one. I get it ranked. And I can sell that for $5,000 or $10,000 and make a payment towards my kids' education.
And I mean, if it's something that's just laying in a box, I mean, it's collections are strange.
It's different when it's whiskey or cigars that we really like to consume.
Yeah,
and then you got to put a price tag on that.
Well, you can smoke baseball cards, but it's not a good idea. Yeah, it's pretty unpleasant.
Yeah, probably. Probably tastes like cardboard.
We'll buy some. Okay, so we'll buy some Onus Wagner baseball cards and roll up my Christmas cheer pipe tobacco in them and smoke them on a show. And then
that won't end well. That would be horrible.
it'll end like, whoa!
Yeah,
You get a lot of views out of that. Come on.
probably. But I like smoking tobacco, not paper. I think that's when you look at. It's interesting in some of my feeds. You tune them towards tobacco and cigars. But most of the articles that are out there today are about cigarettes and vaping. And I'm like, that's not tobacco or cigar. I mean, cigarettes do contain tobacco, right? But you're also burning the paper, which to me was always a huge difference between cigars and cigarettes. Vaping isn't even any of that. Like, it's not even close. It's not even close.
Vaping is mystery juice from like no telling where.
It could be, right? You don't know. I mean, unless
Very
you're
suspicious of what.
we also don't know what's in. I mean, to counterpoint that, we don't know what's in our cigars, Doug. Too. I mean,
That's
we're trusting.
true.
There is a certain level. I mean, we all work in security. Right now on the Stogie Geeks show, right? The people that are here on Stogie Geeks are all in security, so the security, a lot of it comes down to trust. We're trusting that everything in cigars is tobacco in a pure process. Now, those of us listening and then working in cigars know that there's some deviations.
There could be a little bug spray in there or something.
I don't know. I've not heard anything that would make me support or like put out a PSA that there's chemicals to prevent like bugs or disease, right? I have heard though in cigars the petroleum jelly that makes the wrappers darker. I have heard that. I have no proof of that, right? Like it's like anything else. Like I have no proof or anything like that happens. But I know that's something that I've heard that may happen in that process. I also have not read a study that compares the health effects of cigars that have been coated in petroleum versus not. I think that's much like, we talk about health and COVID and vaccines. That's like I saw it in a Facebook comment and that sounds bad, right? But
Must be true.
I mean, all of us that, work in, on the show, like, we work in technology, we work in security. We're all about testing hypothesis based on data. So, like, I don't know. I haven't read studies that talk about that.
Probably nobody's done one, yeah.
And even if someone did one, I take that with a grain of salt because I want to see multiple studies, and then I want to see the study that analyzes the study so that we can make an intelligent decision about the risk. And that's what it comes down to. I tell you what's complete bullshit along these lines. It's a great segue. I know you guys are all big Sex and the City fans. You guys all watch that show, right?
It's a show.
It's a show.
It's a whole gig. It's a whole culture.
Sarah Jessica
No, I
Parker.
know what it is,
the
yeah.
premise of the show.
I was
right?
just making sure you were talking about the show and not just like actual sex in a city somewhere.
Right. That'd be a very broad topic, but this is a very focused topic on the show, which I've watched with my significant other. And I tell you what, in terms of like writing and acting, like the show was pretty good in that sense. The storyline is obviously, geared towards a bunch of women that are living in the city and trying to make a living and have relationships and all that kind of stuff. But the show is, from my assessment, is well done. I mean, Doug especially, I know you're a very big movie, TV buff. Like the writers were on point, right?
Yeah.
In this show. One of the characters, his nickname is Mr. Big, right? Because he's a big finance guy in Wall Street in New York. And so it was kind of just, in my mind, the writers were like, well, it's natural that this character would smoke cigars. Like if you were in bigwig in finance in Wall Street in 90s, early 2000s in New York City, you probably smoked cigars.
And did cocaine.
And did cocaine. At some point in your life, you probably did both of those things.
At the same time.
Yeah. So one of the early episodes that introduces this character is something that I think, if you haven't watched this show, all you need to do is hear my little story about it, and you'll just grow an appreciation for this character as a cigar smoker. Is that they're in a restaurant in New York City, again, like, it looks like it was set in early 2000s or whatever, and Mr. Big goes to light up a cigar, and the waitress comes over, and they're like, yeah, there's like other people here, like we really don't want, and he's like looking around, he's like, what are you talking about? There's like one other table of people in this restaurant. And they're like, yeah, we don't want like other people complaining. Like it wasn't even like today where they'd be like, this is a non-smoking establishment. They were like, kind of pitching it towards, I don't want to piss off our other patrons. And so Mr. Big, being the, finance Wall Street person who's very wealthy, smokes cigars, goes over to the other table, buys everyone at the table around, round of drinks for the table, converses with them a little bit, and goes, hey, by the way, like, do you mind when I go back to my table if I light up a cigar? And they're like, oh, no, it's totally fine. Walks back to his table and lights up his cigar. I'm like, that is great. So like they did this show back in the day. They did a couple of movies on it, like, because they're really trying to obviously monetize on this storyline and the characters. Now they've re-released this show. I think the last movie came out 5+ years ago, and so now they've rebooted the show. Kim Cattrall was out. You know her from Star Trek. Mm-hmm. She was in a Star Trek movie, right? That's how I know her. My wife's like, "What are you talking about? She was in Star Trek?" I'm like, it's a long story. She was the mole. It's whatever. So she's not in the show, but the character Mr. Big is in the show. He's married to Sarah Jessica Parker's character in the show. And so in this show, they show him smoking a cigar. He's like got the window open in his studio apartment that they live in, right? It's a really nice apartment, and he's smoking a cigar. I'm trying to look and see what the label is. Like, is it a Davidoff? Is it a Monte Cristo? Like, what kind of cigar
it's a White Owl.
Yeah, it's not a White Owl. Like, it's a nice hand-rolled cigar.
Oh, okay.
That he's smoking, right? And then he gets on a, and I don't want to spoil it. Like, I know spoilers. I know all of you want to go watch this.
You already
show
spoiled
now.
it by telling us they got married.
Yeah, exactly. More spoilers.
Damn you.
So a big spoiler. Like, turn it off if you don't want to spoil it for yourself. Yeah. But he gets on a Peloton, starts doing a workout, and dies of a heart attack.
Ooh.
Peloton stock plummets.
Wow.
Like, it's a huge... So the show, I believe from what I've read, told them, like, we're going to use a Peloton on the show. And the way I envision it is that Peloton's like, oh, this is great. Like, this show is hugely popular. Our product's going to be featured in the show. They're rebooting. There's a lot of buzz about it. They've got everyone but Kim Cattrall back on the show. Like, this is going to be a huge success. It's going to air on HBO. It's going to be, because it was an HBO show and still is today. This is going to be great. And he gets on the Peloton and he drops dead of a heart attack. The cardiologist, apparently Peloton employs a cardiologist. The cardiologist for Peloton goes, oh, no. It wasn't the Peloton that killed
cigars.
Mr. Big. It was the cigar.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, you're talking about a fictitious character. The writers determine the fate of all these characters. It's not a real person. The writers can write in whenever they want. It's like when we get in discussions with Marvel, like, who would win? Would it be Thor, or would it be
it's whoever,
Iron Man? Like, who
the
would
whole
win
thing
in the
about
fight?
what happened after the end of The Sopranos. There's like, and somebody, we were talking about that once, and I was like, nothing happened because they didn't write any more of it. You know, and I'm like,
they left it up to your interpretation.
Like,
they had their own interpretation.
Yeah, but they didn't write what happened, so nothing happened. It's fiction.
It's fiction. Stan Lee always said, and he's quoted in an interview, because he's like, over the years, everyone always asked me, like, who'd win in a fight, Spider-Man or Iron Man? Like, who would win between all these fictitious characters? And Stan Lee's like, there's only one answer to that question. He's like, whoever the writers want to win. Yeah. He's like, this is fiction, folks.
I thought you were going to say Stan Lee said, never smoke a cigar on a Peloton.
Right?
Excelsior.
So I
mean, would clearly be Spider-Man.
No, the answer, Joe, is whoever the writers want to win. In this series of comics, it's this one, because that's who the writers wanted to win. In the case of the Peloton with Mr. Big, it's whatever the writers.
Nothing happened to him. He's not real.
The writers never really said what
the diagnosis is a bit, sketchy.
But it's fiction.
It is fiction.
It comes down to the writers. It's whatever supports the storyline that they're writing into the show. So for Peloton to come out, I mean, obviously they're trying to protect their product and image. I mean, it couldn't be any more clear. They produce no evidence. It's not like they link to any kind of studies or anything. So, like, what does that mean?
Well,
like,
this just put me right off Peloton.
Don't smoke a cigar and then get on your Peloton, but only if you're in a fictitious TV show that has.
Yeah, there you go.
That's really the only
chain
conclusion.
of events could lead to a really bad thing. So, if you're in a fictitious television show,
I always liked that the character smoked cigars, and in fact, in the show, the writers wrote in one of the other characters says, oh, he got a clear bill of health from his cardiologist, like it was just a freak accident, right? Because Peloton's saying, well, Mr. Big liked to eat and smoke and drink and all these kind of things, and that's it wasn't the Peloton that killed him.
I would say a cigar smoking guy named Mr. Big in New York in the 90s probably ate a lot of
lobsters,
butter, steaks with big piles of butter on top of them,
martinis. I mean, they do show him drinking. He was a big wine connoisseur there, sharing a bottle of wine in the show
good
as
for
well.
your heart,
Everything in moderation.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not health experts here, but I'd
say don't drink a bottle of wine and get on a Peloton. That could be pretty ugly.
That could be bad.
How did Mr. Big have time to get on a Peloton? You got to dedicate.
He did. Well, in the show, they show me he's on his 1,000th hour on his Peloton. He was actually using it to try and keep himself healthy, right?
Yeah.
And we all should do that, but we're all going to die someday.
Yeah.
And when we die, someone else is going to smoke
our cigar. Would you rather die on a Peloton or with a cigar?
And someone else is going to smoke your cigars after you die, and that goes back to our previous segment.
Yeah.
You should smoke all the good stuff that you have while you're still alive.
Because otherwise some schlub's going to inherit it and give it all out to his friends down at the pool hall.
Right?
I don't know. My dad left me these. I don't know. They're called Opus something or other. Let's smoke them.
Tim says now he was wondering about the price dip of Peloton.
Right? I think Peloton's great. I think it's a great product. I've been toying with getting one myself. I think it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a whole culture. And
you'll have to give up the cigars. It's a dangerous combination.
Right? Because if I have a cigar and get a Peloton, I might die, provided my life is written by the same writers as Sex and the City.
That's right. You never know who's writing your life, so you better be careful.
Mm-hmm. I think it would still be Spider-Man.
I'm also very excited for the new Spider-Man movie. Very excited for that. That's kind of a side note. Speaking of Spider-Man, can't not talk about it released today. You can go to the movies and theaters and watch it right now.
That's true.
Yet you're still listening to this show, and I thank you for that rather than going to watch Spider-Man.
We
appreciate that.
You could be watching Spider-Man.
I know.
Right
I'm excited about that. So, what do you guys like for gifts? Either to give to your cigar smoking friends, or as a cigar smoker, what would you like as a gift that's related to cigar smoking? And don't say Peloton
or White Owl.
Yeah, Peloton and White Owl are off the table. I mean, you get a Peloton because that's what you want to do. It shouldn't relate to your cigar smoking.
So, what would we?
I mean, those are tough. Those are tough. To me, these are very tough gifts unless you know somebody very well.
True.
I mean, just bourbon alone. I mean, there's so many different kinds and so many different price points and so on. So I think you have to be careful with that. And I think cigars are even more nuanced than a lot of this other stuff. Because if you just go out and you buy, you go to a cigar shop and say, I don't know, my husband smokes cigars, my boyfriend smokes cigars, my girlfriend smokes cigars. And you're like, I don't really smoke them, but I think you're going to get
unless they know that person.
If they know them, yeah. So what I was going to say was same with wine. If you have a family member, a friend, or a significant other, whatever that smokes or drinks or whatever, if you know they have a place they go, then you go find somebody and go, hey, what does Doug like? And they can say, oh, he buys these really nasty White Owls.
I've seen that with Stogie saying I've literally been standing there when holiday time comes around. You see it. They go see Stogie Santa and they're like, hey, Stogie Santa, my significant other is this person. I want to get him a gift. What do they like? And he'll put together something for them.
Don't just go get the most expensive thing you can find at the Davidoff shop.
That might not be,
they may not even like those, and it may be too much or whatever. And I think all that stuff is so nuanced. You better find somebody that knows, because otherwise you're going to be, or get them a gift certificate.
Yeah.
I know that's not all romantic and sexy and everything, but I mean, if you know somebody who likes cigars, go to the local cigar shop and get them a gift certificate and let them get whatever they want. And
I don't know. I think a quality cutter or lighter. Yeah. I don't think a cigar smoker can really have too many cutters or lighters.
For sure.
The
only thing I wouldn't like
quality would be, one though. Quality.
Yeah. The only thing I wouldn't like would be an ashtray. Because
I agree. I agree, Joe. I think that's good.
You have
good
ashtrays.
advice.
If you go for a walk and you have a sky do thing, whatever. I wouldn't like an ashtray, like a nice ashtray. I've given away so many nice ashtrays that I've won in raffles.
I think all the ashtrays sitting on the table today are ones that came free.
I know the ones I brought because I got them for free.
You get them for free when you order, or a cigar rep or whatever, or you win it at a raffle at a cigar event, and you have this collection of
lighters. The lighters are good.
If I had to choose, like, I'd like a nice soft flame lighter. Like, it's not butane. Like, you know what I mean? Like a soft flame.
Like an old school lighter?
No, like
not
ST
a Tor.
DuPont.
Well, a lot of them are butane, but
You mean
they're
like an
not
old
torch.
Zippo kind of lighter? Like with
not
lighter
a Zippo,
fluid?
though. Not a Zippo.
Zippo uses the fluid fuel.
So what kind of fuel are you wanting in
Butane
this?
fuel soft flame.
Oh, butane. Okay, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, it looks like a match, but it's like butane.
Yeah,
driven.
like
Colibri makes one.
Yeah.
that I
ST
really
DuPont
like.
makes one.
Yep.
Like, it depends on your price
DuPont
point.
makes really expensive
like,
ones.
I mean,
They're
you
nice.
can get like a freaking $4,000 ST DuPont lighter. But like, you know, a nice $100 ST DuPont.
Do they have them in that $100 price range?
It might be $1.75.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
You know,
Those are really nice ones.
But like a nice for me, a nice soft flame lighter. I mean, cutters. I mean, I have so many of them. You know what I mean? They're always lying around or lying on my drawers here at work, home. You know, I have so many of them. You know, I have the classic Zyke. I have 2 of these.
Right.
But see, because I have a lot of them, I put them like in different spots. Like one's in my golf bag, one's in my regular computer bag for work.
One's in the shower.
You know, no, I don't smoke in the shower. But
what the hell's wrong with you?
This is you know,
How do you smoke in the shower?
You just stay above the water line.
I gotta
It's
figure
fine.
that out. You know, plexiglass, right? You have it above with plexiglass.
I used to smoke cigarettes in the shower.
Really?
Really?
Yeah, I did all the time.
Was that the 70s?
I never didn't have a cigarette. When I smoked cigarettes, I
Really?
always had a cigarette. I would wake up in the middle of the night and smoke cigarettes. I would wake up like 2 in the morning and go, I'm going to light a cigarette.
Yeah, you get that fixed. But like, I would like a nice soft flame lighter, if I could choose. And I probably should. I'd like a stand-up humidor, but like a smaller one with drawers, almost like a, you know, it stands, they say like 4 feet high or something like that, Paul. Wooden trays to really.
I was trying to look
really
up.
get into agent, and I would have to have a lock and key, and I would give the key to you. This way, I couldn't get in it. But I do know how to lock pick now, so that wouldn't help.
That wouldn't work.
You get a timer lock, so it waits 5 years and then opens. So
Right,
you get like these mystery drawers that
Yeah.
are not going to unlock for 5 years, and then you forget what's in them, and then that would be kind of cool actually.
Yeah, but for me personally, like a nice soft flame lighter.
I have a custom cigar cutter, and I can't for the life of me remember where I got it from. It was actually someone in security that recommended I go. I think he knew the owners of this company and recommended that I go there and buy the cutter. And it's the one I keep. You guys have seen it. It's the one I keep on my desk. It's like a silver color with like a black inlay. It's super thick. It's really heavy, and it was like $175 for the cutter. But it never leaves my desk. Right. I think that makes a great gift. If I find it through the course of the rest of the show, I'll let you know what it is, or come back in January and tell you where I got it from. But it is an awesome cutter. Those kind of things make, I think, really good.
Yeah.
The one nice lighter, the one nice, DuPont makes a really high end, one nice lighter, one nice cutter kind of thing.
I stand corrected. Looks like I can get an ST DuPont lighter for $1,015.
Get 2 then.
I know they're big bucks, dude. They're big bucks.
No, Lou had one that got stolen, but yeah, he had one that probably cost like $500 or something, and
Yeah, humidors. I've been seeing a lot of the refrigerator style humidors.
Yeah,
there's a lot more companies.
it's the same
now.
chassis. Those little wine. Those little.
It's a winador. A
yeah.
winador is what we call it.
Oh yeah.
It's a thermoelectric wine fridge, which
Yep.
doesn't remove the humidity,
Right.
but keeps it at a certain temperature. There's a lot more companies making these now. I don't
they're
have
real
I don't have a
popular.
list, but Google around for them.
We were looking at how we were just recently trying to buy a house. We were looking at houses, and a lot of houses had these in kitchen little wine refrigerator things,
Correct.
and some of them had cigar compartments.
Some of them have combined.
And some of them have separate compartments for
Right,
red wines,
right.
white wines, and
And
cigars
cigars,
and stuff
right.
like that. Yeah, it's very. We looked at
What
a house
I find
that
though
had
is the capacity on the winadors is not huge, which is why I go with the cabinets, right? To store even a portion of my collection, I need a stack of these wineadors.
Yeah, but you don't. Like I was talking about earlier. You don't use that for your long-term storage. You just use it. This is just the cigars you're going to smoke.
Right.
So you bring them upstairs and you put them in there, and so you got 20, 25 cigars in there or whatever it'll hold, and that's just the ones you're going to smoke this week.
Right.
You know, it's not the.
But
ones.
I find though, if you're going to spend the money on something that controls temperature and humidity,
Yeah.
to me that would be my long-term storage.
Well, you can buy large. You can buy large of same things at store wine. You can just put 500
I haven't
bottles
seen
of wine.
ones that have like a really large wine refrigerator
Really?
that stores
Oh, they
cigars.
make,
I haven't seen really large.
Well, they do
ones.
make them. I mean, you see them in people's basements and
Yeah.
stuff. Like we looked at a house and there was like 4 of those in the basement. That each one would hold like 200 bottles of wine, and so
Down, they do make humidors that have the components to maintain temperature.
Yeah.
But it's a wooden. I have one at home. It's a wooden piece of furniture that maintains temperature, so it's not a wineador. So I feel like if you want to have something that controls temperature, that's a really big cabinet, you're going to go to. Now I can't remember the.
Go get a
manufacturer.
dorm refrigerator, set it on the right, just measure the temperature with a thermometer, and you're good to go.
Right.
You get that for $200. I mean, really, it's like
Yeah.
you could just monitor it and it'll be fine. It's got a thermostat in it, so just crank it to where it's not so cold, and it'll be fine. Unless you like your cigars really cold or something.
Aristocrat is one of them that we've talked about on the show before. And there's another one that I can't think of the name. I have one, but those are the ones you want to go after. Those higher ones is like Aristocrat and one other manufacturer that makes really nice wooden furniture and has models that they put the thermoelectric cooling unit in that will maintain temperature. Those are ones you want to go for.
What would you like for a gift?
I don't know, man. I got most of the cigar stuff like covered.
I think he was just telling you, Joe.
I don't have a DuPont.
Aristocrat.
I don't have a DuPont
Like to me,
lighter.
like
yeah.
an ST DuPont lighter. Like I
a
saw something
DuPont
for
lighter and
700.
a nice cooler.
Yeah, like something like that, because like something like that we would have forever.
Yes,
like you know
exactly.
what I mean? Like I like
It's not
I
a
like,
consumable.
right? Like it's like you know it's sentimental. You know what I mean? Or whoever gave it to you, or however you got it. You're like, what's the matter? You all right? Oh, right. I thought you were laughing at me. Smooth. Right. So no, so I'm like, I don't know. Like I would like that would be like the top of my list. Also, like I used to have a room way back in my younger days. I used to rent this antique house. So I actually lived above an old antique firehouse over in Riverside. It was
Just the PSA. Don't retrohale whiskey.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Right. So I used to rent this back in the day. I loved it. Right. I used to rent this old firehouse, and I lived above the old firehouse, and it was historic underneath, and people go visit, and it was there, and
Wow.
smoking it and whatnot. It's in Riverside, right? It's I actually was a 3-bedroom. God, I miss those days. Rent was $5.25 cash, right? and like so one room.
Did it
'cause
have the pole?
No. It was only me. Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah, we were-
but it was blocked off.
Did you
Like,
have like an old hearse with like the ghost with the line through it?
No, but here's my point. It was a 3-bedroom house. It was a 3-bedroom house. It was only me, and I actually turned it into like a cigar den. So I went to the antique shop. I bought those like French back chairs, and I bought them for like $60 each because I needed smoking in them. And like I set up a cigar room, and like friends of mine, friends I still talk to today, like dude, like we had like the most fun just chilling in that room, and just there was no TV, had a bottle or whatever, and just chilling. And I have the nightstand from it still. I've long gotten rid of the chairs, and I have some antique stuff in my garage that I've cured. I had a little like cigar Indian, and it was like a little like your own shop. Like
Right.
I'd like a shed on my property for
like a
something
he
like that.
shed, not a she shed, but a he shed.
Yeah, like something like that was furnished, and you're not out there with your jacket.
That's
freezing.
what I just gave up. At my other house, I had a 2-story building, and it was like separate from the house.
Yeah.
You could smoke out there. I mean, it was like 1,500 square feet, so it was it
Yeah.
was,
Like something like that. You invite some
yeah, I
friends
know.
over.
I'm missing it badly when I'm standing out on the deck in the freezing rain smoking.
I told you should build one.
I want to. It's just I got to sell that other house first. So. Speaking of which, one time only.
Yeah. So what are you going to do, Doug, to have a place to smoke and have your humidors in and stuff like that?
All right, now I don't.
What's your plans, though?
We're gonna. Well, I'm probably gonna build an office out there because I always had an office. I don't have anywhere to put all my guitars, and I don't even have all my guitars. So or more than half the guitars are sitting in a storage building, and
right.
I got all the guitars and amps. All the amps are in storage building. So yeah, so I have to have somewhere to put all that stuff. And it's so probably build something.
I like the separate. I think. My next humidor will be like a built-in walk-in kind of thing too.
Yeah.
And
I would do like a cellar, have some wine, have some pipe tobacco there, some whiskey. You know what I mean? It just kind of like a bar. You know what I mean? I
could have done that with my old building. I could have literally made like a bar.
Right.
Yeah. I just never did. But it was cool. You could play guitar. You could smoke.
Yeah.
I mean, I can drink in the house now, but you can't. Nobody's going to go for smoking in the house.
You got to have a separate structure,
especially for cigars. Oh my god,
for cigars.
Because
we were talking about with airplanes, we didn't talk about that on air. We were being nostalgic and talking about when you could actually smoke on an airplane. And then in a certain juncture, I remember in college, there was the smoking section of the airplane and the non-smoking section. Was that always the case? I think there really was.
I don't think
the back half was usually smoking, and
by the time by then it was.
By the time
earlier,
I
think in the '60s
in the '60s people smoked on the planes.
Smoked everywhere.
People smoked everywhere. I've been watching a lot of mafia history documentaries and stuff, and in the '30s, when a lot of the immigrants came over and they created gangs, and then eventually the mafia. Everyone's smoking. Like they're visiting their friends in the hospital on one of these like documentary style TV shows. And everyone's smoking cigarettes, in the hospital.
When I worked at a morgue when I was in high school, and when I would go to the hospital to do pickups and stuff. If you did go in an area of the hospital where you weren't allowed, they had oxygen or something. They'd have a little ashtray sitting there, so you could leave your lit cigarette there while you went in and came back out. But I mean, you walk around the hospital. Sometimes people in the elevator would be like, "Would you mind extinguishing that?" And the elevator had a big ashtray in the front of it, and it's like, it's just 2 floors. Give me a break here.
Yeah.
But I mean, people smoked everywhere. I remember
people like to tell you to put your cigarettes out a lot, Doug. Back in the day.
Yeah.
On the airplane, you said some lady
they were asking. Yeah, you'd run into that, where there'd be these like horrible, pinko, un-American types who didn't smoke standing there.
Was that like in the 70s, 80s?
It was in the late 70s, early 80s. So it was, but you could smoke pretty much. I mean, it was just getting ready to change. So when I graduated from college, I went to work for the bank, Federal Reserve Bank. And when I first went there, you could smoke. And like literally within weeks, so that was in 1986, when within weeks, they actually passed a federal law that you could smoke in any federally funded locations.
Right.
And it was chaos at the bank.
But you could still smoke in corporations at that time.
Oh, yeah. You could smoke most everywhere.
By the time,
but it was changing.
By the time I went to college in the 90s, you couldn't smoke in the school, right? Which I'm sure at some point
when I was in college, you could smoke in class if the professor was smoking.
Okay.
If they weren't smoking, it was a 50-50. I'd usually give it a shot one time, and they'd go, because they had little sand buckets sitting around where you could put your cigarettes out.
Isn't that crazy to think about
in the classroom?
Today?
And you'd be in like a class, like a normal sized classroom, and half the people in there are smoking cigarettes, and the professor's got a pipe.
But sometime in the 90s, they said domestic flights you can't smoke.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I think it was the 90s.
I don't remember what year it was. It was early 90s. U.S. domestic flights, because I remember being on flights to Europe.
I was on a flight to Belize, rather, and it was the international flight from wherever in Texas, Dallas to Belize. You could smoke.
Well, it was an international flight.
Yeah,
The minute they got above a certain altitude, you could smoke. Because I was going to say, I remember when they first passed that. I did not smoke anymore by that time. I had quit smoking in the 80s. But I remember that the minute like the KLM flight would get up above some certain altitude, they'd be like, "Now you may smoke," and everybody would light up.
But you couldn't smoke cigars or pipes.
No.
On any flights.
They had a thing about that.
I'm sure sometime you could.
You could in the 60s, I think. And my dad said he remembered people smoking cigars and stuff on the airplane because he didn't smoke. And he was like talking about how bad it was. And
cigars put out a lot of smoke and really thick, heavy smoke.
Thick, heavy, oily smoke. It's like pipes are even worse. And Yeah, but I mean, everybody smoked everywhere back then. I mean, it was like I was talking to somebody the other day, and I was like, I remember going in people's houses who didn't smoke,
Yes.
and lighting a cigarette, and somebody would run over there and grab an ashtray and set it down in front of them. Yeah, and like then today, if you walk to somebody's house and didn't smoke and lit a cigarette, they would dump a bucket of water on you or something.
But now, so put the airline travel aside. We'll talk about here. All three of us are from Rhode Island, right? Up to a certain point, you could smoke in a restaurant or bar.
Oh,
And that one came way after the airlines. What year? I don't remember.
When
what
I
year
owned
was
the
that?
cigar shop, so it had to be like 2002, because when I owned the cigar shop, I remember going to Grappa, which is where Tel Aviv is now locally, right? I remember going to Grappa and going there and sitting in the, it was like a restaurant that turned kind of clubby, music, had a DJ, whatever, and like ripping a cigar, like totally ripping a cigar.
Well, it was after.
I remember quick rock story. You've heard of Seven Dust, right? The band Seven Dust. I'm in Lupo's, the old Lupo's. I'm smoking a Monte Cristo number 2. Big cigar, right? Smoking a Monte Cristo number 2. Bounce, it's me, bunch of friends, crowd. Bouncer comes up to us and says, "Hey, what are you smoking?" I was like, "I'm smoking a Monte Cristo number 2. He goes, "Come with me." I was like, "Okay," right? I go to the bouncer. I'm thinking he's going to ask me to extinguish it. He goes, "Morgan, the drummer, smokes cigars. He saw you in the crowd. Do you have any?" I was like, "Sure," because, we always carry cigars around me. Dude, we're backstage. Now, my buddy Tony, who was my roommate at the time, huge Seven Dust fan, blah, blah, blah. We're in the backstage smoking cigars with them before they're on set.
Cool.
And and this was only like 99, 2000.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Like,
so like, I
mean?
was in college, 95 to 99, and I want to say all the bars and clubs I went to in college,
Totally smoked.
you could smoke.
Totally.
Well, after
You could
90,
smoke.
sometime after 95, the state started passing laws about
Restaurants. Restaurants.
Because I remember
Restaurants
being
used to have smoking sections.
well, in Michigan. So I remember when I lived in Michigan in the 90s, and when I lived there, I remember restaurants had a smoking section, and it was usually just like, he's smoking, I'm not. That's a smoking section.
Yeah. They
And,
would ask you smoking or non-smoking when you walked into a restaurant.
But then it wasn't too long. It was probably around, it was probably like early 2000s when they finally just said no.
I was going to say, by the time I started working for Brown and we would go out and go to lunch and stuff like that, no one was smoking in restaurants in 2001.
2010, I went to Heavy Rebel Weekender, Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Yep.
70 bands, 3 days, rockabilly, whole classic custom cars, crazy times, etc., etc. Actually playing an old jailhouse, super cool place.
Yeah.
And I remember going to a restaurant and they had smoking a non. I remember
That's
going
North
with the band.
Carolina.
That's North Carolina.
Yeah,
My dad lived in North
That's
Carolina.
2010. That wasn't too long ago.
No.
But no, funny you say that. My dad lived in North Carolina, and I went out to visit him while I was in college, just before I was graduating. It was later in college. We went to like a breakfast restaurant, and I like lit up a cigarette. He's like, "You still smoking, huh?" I'm like, "Yeah." And there I'm smoking in a restaurant in North Carolina. I'm like, "This is great. I can smoke in a restaurant," because I think it was just after in Rhode Island they said you can't smoke in a restaurant.
So yeah, some things changed
Some things changed, right? Now you can't. Now you can't smoke
anywhere.
anywhere.
You can't, like on our campus, you can't smoke.
You can't even smoke outside.
No, you
on
can't
the
even
campus.
smoke outside. You have to actually, you have to leave the campus altogether. But for a while, I think they may have some still little kiosks or something where you can go way off somewhere and smoke. But yeah, most places you can't even smoke.
I remember some of my friends saying, like, I'm visiting my son or whatever, and they work in California, and work on a campus in a technology company, and they're like,
Yeah, no.
they could get fired if one of their guests smokes on that campus.
Yeah.
Marijuana, though, totally fine to smoke.
Oh, you go on the street.
Doesn't matter. On the street in San Francisco, 2019 RSA. Don't have a cigar or a cigarette, but like if you got a joint, you're totally fine. But if you smoke
fine.
tobacco,
That's 2019. That wasn't too long ago.
right? Can't smoke anywhere now.
It's crazy. It's changed. Like I remember cigars in my older friends.
I don't understand. Like we're gonna have masks to go into restaurants. Shouldn't we be able to smoke if people have masks?
Oh my god.
You got masks on. What does it matter, right? You can't smell it as good.
But there's
That would
lots
never
of cigar
fly.
clubs now, so there are.
But you're right, Doug. That's what it, I think, really fueled was the
Cigar
opening
clubs
of these
and-
cigar clubs
yeah.
and lounges where people do want to go and smoke.
I mean, there's a place for that, and it's nice.
Yeah,
and
it's
I
a
like
place,
to go.
yes.
I don't miss people smoking in restaurants. I mean,
I
when I
kind of
smoked,
agree.
I didn't
I
smell
agree.
it. 'Cause,
Yeah.
used to you didn't even smell smoke. I mean, I remember my friends in high school like smoking in their houses in the bathroom and stuff, and going, "Hope my parents don't see this." And I'm like. Today, my daughter's like, how on earth if somebody lights it, we could smell when our neighbors lit a cigarette in their house.
Yes.
But back then, you couldn't smell it. I remember smoking at my parents' house when I was a kid, and my parents didn't smoke. And they didn't notice it.
Because you weren't,
Because
it's-
they were so used to the smell of tobacco because it was everywhere that they didn't even think about it. I mean, I remember like being in church and sneaking out of church and going out into out the front area and still inside and smoking cigarettes, and nobody noticed it because nobody smelled. Today, if you light a cigarette, anywhere in the general vicinity, you'll somebody
because
will smell
more
it.
people smoked and it was on their clothes, it was in the air, in the
It's-
outside.
yeah, it's crazy
I
how
took
many
my.
people
It's
smoke.
funny. This Tuesday, I took my trash out. I take my trash out. I'm going. I smell cigarette smoke. I'm like, that is cigarette smoke, and I'm like, now I have a teenager, right? And some of the kids in the neighborhood are getting older and stuff like that. And I'm like, is it one of them smoking? I'm like, who's out on the roof smoking or whatever? Because I was a teenager too, and you snuck everywhere to go have a cigarette or whatever. And I'm like, who's smoking? It was my neighbor across the street, but I picked
you
up
can
on
smell
it.
Yeah,
like,
you smell it.
right away.
Yep. But you didn't used to.
No.
And nobody noticed it. And all the cars smell like smoke because somebody smoked all the time. My dad was in a carpool, and out of 4 people that rode in the carpool, he was the only one that didn't smoke. And one guy smoked a pipe, and the car was just covered in tar and everything, and everything was like that.
My grandfather, when I was young, my grandfather passed when I was 11. So put this in perspective. So I'm 9, right? And I would go visit my grandparents, and he couldn't walk all the way down the street, but he'd walk to go get his tobacco or his cigars, right, and whatnot. And sometimes he didn't. As he was getting older, he didn't walk the whole way. I would go to the tobacco shop and get it for him. You know what I mean? And go to the tobacco shop, and then he would see my grandfather and wave down the street or whatever. But it's like it was always around. It was parents. It was always around, and it just...
My uncles always talked about smoking when they were 4 years old. He said when he was 4 and his brother was 3, his father would send him to the store to get cigarettes, and they'd go buy 2 packs of cigarettes and 2 singles, and they'd smoke the 2 singles walking back home.
Right?
I remember being in high school, and it was one of those times where you have a family event where you have to stay, and I'm a junior in high school, so I'm 17 years old, and we have a family get together in a fire pit. And my mom's like, "Can you and your father light those cigars, keep the mosquitoes away?"
Yeah.
Really? And you're like, "Okay, great." We were going to anyway, but but she rushed that process. You know
Well,
what I mean?
and nowadays you're at an event outside at a party, and you're like, can I smoke a cigar?
yeah.
If it's my house, I'm doing what the fuck I want, right?
Yeah.
People know when they come to my house for a party, if it's a birthday party for a kid or what have you, they're cigars, right? But a lot of other events like that, no smoking, none of that.
It's definitely changed times.
It's good though that we have places where we can smoke today.
Well, that's kind of the
It's
way
still,
it should be.
I agree, Doug. I agree with that. I do. I think outside it should be whatever because you're outside.
I mean, I never thought about how annoying it was until I quit smoking, and then I was around when places where people,
But I think it's more, to use your language, it's more annoying than it is a public safety issue.
Oh yeah, it's just it
Right?
smells bad, and I don't want to smell it. I'm trying to eat my food, and I don't want you sitting next to me smoking and all this. And so it's nice that there's clubs and restaurants that cater to people who smoke. And when I want to smoke a cigar, I can go there, and that's cool. And
I think I'm in the minority of the population that when I'm eating, I can deal with smoke. I actually
I can deal with it. I just it was.
But so we're going to this event where we're going to be eating and smoking.
Yeah.
I love having a cigar other people smoking like while
It's
I'm
fine,
eating.
and I mean,
Yeah.
it depends on the setting.
Maybe
It's
not
just-
every meal. You're right. Maybe not every, but I like that. I like having a cigar while I'm eating and drinking and smoking and enjoying it all at once. Like I like that.
Well,
kind
if
of
that's the
environment.
event, then it's I do too. But it's just not all the time.
All the time is
Yeah.
kind of annoying.
So Tim, who clearly knows both of you, didn't realize you were that old, and he wants to know if you dye your hair.
I do not dye my hair.
Notice he doesn't ask me that.
I was gonna
As my beard gets longer, it's more gray.
If I was going to dye my hair, it would be a more interesting color than this. So I did dye. It was blue last year for a while. So because
It was, yeah.
because of we were bored during the pandemic, and my daughter was like, "Let's do something."
Well, the way we're going, you might be.
I know we're going to
Pick a
doing
new
that again
color.
this year. Yay!
I do have to say, us all being hackers, right? We always find the place wherever we go, and even just limit to the three of us.
Even in Boston.
When the three of us have been in any city in this country, maybe even internationally, we've always found the place where we can go smoke.
Yeah.
And I hope that.
And that's fun, and
I hope that
I
continues,
love
right?
doing that. I mean, like I've found cigar clubs in Poland
Everywhere.
and Russia and China,
San
and-
Francisco.
Oh, that's a
Holy
hard one there.
But we did in
we-
2019. We found that
There
woman,
is one.
that woman that ran that one right in
No,
downtown.
I've been
she
there,
was
yeah.
awesome.
Wait, 2018, 2019, we're in Boston at Strip by Strager
Yes.
at the table smoking.
Wow. That was vaping. That's a story for another time. But
Like I was like,
but in Boston, it's
San Francisco's
Stanza.
tougher, but you can
San
find a
Francisco,
place.
there's one. There's usually one in every.
And I went when I was in Orlando at Microsoft Fire or whatever that was. Ignite. Sorry, Microsoft Ignite. Every night, Mark and I went to this
Corona.
cigar. Yeah, we went to the cigar
Cigar.
club and drank
Yep.
bourbon and smoked cigars. It was a blast. And, yeah. I mean, my friend Lou and I, we traveled all over the place and to the conferences, and we always found the cigar. He smoked cigarettes, but we'd find a cigar club where you could smoke and sit there and drink brandy and smoke cigars. And
Vegas has always been easier.
yeah, well, Vegas is always
Vegas
easier
is
for
Ve-
about
'cause Vegas
anything
is
you want to
Vegas.
do. You can usually do it
Sure.
easier in Vegas.
But New Orleans, though, I mean, I remember
New Orleans,
in the
big
late
smoking
90s in New
town.
Orleans, we could be in the
It's big.
I was in the hotel lobby
Yeah.
having a cigar and a bourbon, but not so much now. But there's always a place you can find.
Oh,
But why can't
Which is
we
good.
bring back those days?
I know, right?
Like, because like it was like you weren't like looking around. You just took out a cigar, cut it, and light it, and did your thing.
There was a certain thing with that, but good that we can still find the places wherever we go.
And they're nice and they're fun to hang out. And
But I think that's a good point, Doug. Is they're really nice places?
Yeah.
it's not like I got to go to the ghetto or some
you're not standing
trashy place.
I remember Lou smoking one time, and he was in this alley, and he was like,
Yeah.
No, I was like, "This is awful, Lou. Let's go somewhere else." And he's like, "It'll be fine." And I was like, "No, come on, this is horrible. I feel like we're getting ready to shoot up or something." I
Yeah.
was like, "Let's go find a cigar bar or something we can sit there." And so we finally did, because he was out there freezing in the cold trying to get his.
Now, a lot of cigar bars don't let you have cigarettes.
That's right. We learned
But
that. We learned that the
you
hard
can have
way.
cigar, and I think the three of us have been in some of the nicest places in the country and had cigars together, and it's a really nice thing.
It is.
I like it that it's a luxury thing that you can go to a really
It's
nice
awesome.
place, have a nice drink, and
I'm
have a
very
cigar.
fortunate to have gotten to
Yeah.
do such things, and I always enjoy doing those things with everybody here. We always have such a good time, and at DEF CON and all these kind of things, and RSA or whatever. And so
Absolutely.
hopefully those days will come around again.
Hopefully so. Well, awesome. Well, that is the Stogie Geeks show for today and for the year. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy smoking.
Happy smoking. Thanks everyone for listening to the Stogie Geeks show. We'll see you next time in January.